Chapter 108. Exian Jaluan sighed and said, "Sigh, that woman almost killed me. And you're still laughing." Chi Meiyan finally stopped laughing. She said, "What's that woman's background?" Exian Jaluan said, "I don't know." Chi Meiyan was stunned and then asked, "Does she have a master or a sect?" Exian Jaluan said, "I don't know." Chi Meiyan said, "Where does she live?" Exian Jaluan said, "I don't know." Three don't knows. Not only was Chi Meiyan stunned, Exian Feng was also dumbfounded. It really was don't know. Chi Meiyan suddenly became angry. She said, "Senior brother, then what do you know?" Exian Jaluan said, "I know her name." Lei Xingfeng was speechless. This guy had lived so long in vain. After being tricked like this, he actually didn't know anything. It was too ridiculous that he only knew a name. Chi Meiyan said, "What's her name?" Exian Jaluan hesitated for a moment and said, "Maybe it's a fake name." Suddenly, the group of people flew up and down unsteadily. Lei Xingfeng covered his forehead and couldn't say a word. Chi Meiyan was completely defeated by her senior brother. After a while, she said, "Then where are we going?" Exian Jaluan said, "The last place I saw her." Chi Meiyan shouted and ignored Exian Jaluan. She was completely speechless. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Senior brother, isn't there a group of people? You know the others?" Exian Jaluan said, "No." Exian Feng spoke. "All right, senior sister, I admit defeat. I'm guessing that woman must be a beauty capable of bringing calamity to a country. If not, senior brother wouldn't be like this. Senior brother, what's the cultivation of that woman? 6 true ring bodies?" Exian Jaluan said, "I know this. She has 3 true ring bodies. Like you, she shouldn't be too old, at most in her 30s. She has amazing talent." Lei Xingfeng said, 3 true ring bodies? How did she get here? Without 6 true ring bodies, coming here was courting death. Exian Jaluan said with a wry smile, "I brought her here." Everyone was speechless. After a while, Lei Xingfeng sighed and whispered. He asked Chi, "Senior brother is always very muddle-headed?" Chi Meiyan huffed angrily. "He is very smart." Lei Xingfeng muttered, "I don't understand." Chi Meiyan also said, "I don't understand either." Exian Jaluan said, "Hey, you don't have to be so disdainful. Isn't it just being muddle-headed? There are always a few days in life when one is muddle-headed." Lei Xingfeng said, "Senior brother, you're right." Chi Meiyan couldn't help but want to laugh again. With great difficulty, she held it in and said, "Senior brother, we're almost there, right?" Exian Jaluan knew it was inappropriate, but there was nothing he could do. He deeply regretted bringing his junior sister and junior brother here. He was asking for a scolding. After flying for half a day, they arrived at a gravel pit. Exian Jaluan landed and looked around. "Damn, they're all gone." Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. "Senior brother, it's strange that they're still here." He whispered, "Senior sister, I think senior brother did it on purpose." Chi Meiyan whispered, "On purpose?" Lei Xingfeng said, "He didn't want to catch that woman." Chi Meiyan nodded. "And that makes sense." Exian Jaluan was in a daze for a while before he came back and said, "Forget it. I'll take you to a good place." Chi Meiyan said in surprise, "Forget it? Senior brother, you were almost finished. If it weren't for Grandmaster saving you, you might have died this time. Are you going to just let it go?" Exian Jaluan said, "What if we can't find her?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Senior brother, where are you going to take us to play?" He had also thought it through. Since senior brother didn't want to take revenge, and he didn't have any enmity with that woman, why should he care about this matter? He was determined not to do something that was strenuous and unrewarding. Chi Meiyan suddenly smiled and said, "Well, if senior brother isn't in a hurry, why should I be? Senior brother, you have to compensate me this time." It's not fun at all to come here for nothing. Xian Zhaoluan said a little humbly, Junior sister, don't worry, I'll definitely compensate you. Hee, I'll take you to play. Chi Meiyun said, you have to have my approval first. Otherwise, if you say it's fun, but I don't think it's fun, that won't do. She began to pester endlessly. Xian Zhaoluan's forehead was sweating. He was secretly glad that he didn't bring Yin Yao. Otherwise, it would be more troublesome. He said repeatedly, Junior sister has the final say. Junior sister has the final say. Lei Xingfeng didn't make any requests. He looked at Xian Zhaoluan with deep sympathy. This guy was really pitiful. He was tortured half to death, but he still had unrealistic ideas. He said, where are we going? Xian Zhaoluan said, there are too many people. The bodyguards have all gone home. Well, junior brother A Feng's bodyguards stay. The others go back. One of the bodyguards said, let us go and play. We have been cooped up at home for so long. We were hoping to come out and play this time. The other bodyguards also expressed their agreement. Bodyguards and servants were different. Bodyguards had a certain status, especially the bodyguards of the direct disciples. Their statuses were relatively high. Lei Xingfeng said, Senior brother, let's bring them along. Everyone listen carefully. Whatever happened here, we will keep it to ourselves. No one is allowed to speak nonsense. You understand? The bodyguards agreed in unison. Xian Zhaoluan's face immediately looked better. He was afraid that the bodyguards would spread rumors. With Lei Xingfeng stopping them, he believed that the bodyguards wouldn't do anything. After all, Lei Xingfeng was the master. The master's words were very effective. They continued to walk from the Luan Point. After passing through the ancient Luan Passage, the group of people arrived at a plain. Xian Zhaoluan said, this is the Hui continent. There are many cities here. I will bring you to the big cities to play. I have friends there. Lei Xingfeng secretly calculated. When he was young, he lived in the barbarian gathering continent. The last time he was stranded in the Wanxi continent. Now that they were in the Hui continent, it meant that he had already been to 3 big places. But out of these 3 places, the first 2 places that he went to were small corners with sparse people. Only this place could be a big place. If it was a big city, at least there would be a lot of people. Chi Meiyun said, a big city. Oh, we don't go there often. Oh well, let's go and play. Xian Zhaoluan flew close to the ground. The group of people followed closely behind. Very quickly, they saw a big road. The road was filled with people. When they saw a group of people flying at a low altitude, they were so scared that they knelt on the ground. All of them were in a prostrating position. No one dared to look up. Lei Xingfeng said, aren't we too arrogant? Chi Meiyun asked curiously, how is this arrogant? In her mind, this was a very normal thing. Lei Xingfeng thought about the battle between Chi Meiyun and Yin Yao. The aftermath of the battle killed nearly 30,000 people. The 2 of them did not care at all. They did not even mention it. Even when his master came, he only scolded them for fighting each other. He did not even look at the dead people. He understood in his heart that they did not care about the ordinary people. They would not deliberately deal with them and would not care about what they thought. Lei Xingfeng sighed, secretly. He did not know what to say. Very quickly, they saw a huge city. It was a city without walls. All kinds of buildings spread out. It occupied an area of a few hundred square kilometers. Xian Zhaoluan landed from the sky. He said, okay, let's go in. It's not good to barge in my friend's territory. Let's go in. Lei Xingfeng said, what city is this? What's its name? Xian Zhaoluan explained, this is Wild City. It's Tai Meng's territory, and Tai Meng is considered a strong power in this land. Tai Meng was not just strong. Tai Meng was the super overlord of this land. They controlled at least 100 big and small sections. Their territory was tens of thousands of square kilometers. Everyone living here had to listen to Tai Meng's orders. Xian Jialuan's words were not wrong. According to his understanding, Tai Meng could only be considered a strong power because he was stronger. The old ancestor of Tai Meng was his friend, a very strong expert. He was a true heart-E master with 8 true ring bodies. He was already an invincible existence here. However, Xian Jialuan had 9 true ring bodies and an Ashen Seal Sage. There was a difference of a level. No matter how strong the people of Tai Meng were, they would not dare to provoke such a super expert. After entering the city, Xian Jialuan and Qi Meiyan dismissed their guards and let them do their own things. They had been cultivating in the secret hidden space for a long time. However, they were different from the direct disciples. When they left the secret hidden space, it had to be with the direct disciples. They were not allowed to leave by themselves. Now that they had the chance, they wanted to relax. Only Tiger Love and Mad Eagle could not leave. Lei Xingfeng was relatively weak. They had to ensure his safety. In fact, Lei Xingfeng was already very strong. At least in Hui Continent, his strength should be ranked at the top. Of course, in front of their master, he was nothing. The 5 of them slowly walked into the city. Xian Jialuan said, "Number 9, buy whatever you want. I will pay for it." Qi Meiyan said, "Then what about me?" Xian Jialuan said, "Are you short of money?" Qi Meiyan said, "Of course I'm not short of money. Since when did I lack money?" Xian Jialuan stared at her and said, "Then why are you butting in? This is a gift for number 9. He just came to our place and doesn't have much money. If he wants to buy something, of course, I, the senior brother, will pay for it." Qi Meiyan giggled and said, "He is a junior brother, but I am also a junior sister." She began to be unreasonable. The city's population was not small. However, compared to the big cities in Lei Xingfeng's previous life, the difference was too great. Walking along the main street, the ground was full of potholes and dirty water flowed. A faint stench filled the air. Lei Xingfeng knew that this was a primitive city. There was no planning or management. However, there were all kinds of small shops on the streets. The density of the shops was beyond his expectations. Lei Xingfeng said, "Why are there so many small shops?" Xian Jialuan seemed to be very familiar with this place. He said, "There are a lot of small shops here. Most of them are husband and wife shops. The wife stays at home to look after the shop while the husband carries goods to the countryside. They sell small goods while buying local specialties. Both sides make a profit from the difference in price. Just this line of business alone supports more than 100,000 people." Lei Xingfeng was not interested in this. He was only interested in cultivation. As for the social structure of this place, he would just take a look at it. He did not intend to rule over it. He casually walked into a small shop. Xian Jialuan and the others did not follow him in. They just stood by the roadside and waited. Mad Eagle followed him in while Tiger Love stood at the door. Chapter 109. This was a very small shop. On a small shelf, there were some daily necessities, mainly various kinds of cloth and seasonings. Among them, a large jar was filled with salt, a few large vats were filled with food, and some needles and thread. A woman was sitting inside, holding a child in her arms. She curiously watched Lei Xingfeng come in. She was frightened by the Mad Eagle that came in after him. The Mad Eagle was 2 meters tall. How could an ordinary person withstand its pressure? She was so scared that she retreated. Lei Xingfeng just glanced at it and lost interest. Seeing the woman so scared, He turned around and left. Grocery stores were the most common, followed by ready-made clothing stores, small restaurants, pickled vegetable stores, shoe stores, and so on. Both sides of the street were filled with such small shops. After walking through the street, they saw many large shops. Lei Xingfeng was bored and said, "Let's go, senior brother. Where's the fun? Senior brother, senior brother. Hey, wake up. Why are you in a daze?" Xian Zhaoluan stared blankly ahead. Lei Xingfeng followed Xian Zhaoluan's gaze and saw a group of people standing not far ahead. He saw a woman at a glance, then looked back at Xian Zhaoluan. Suddenly, he understood and said, "Is it that woman? Did he hurt you?" Qi Meiyun suddenly became excited and said, "Which woman? Where is she? Where is she?" No one expected that Xian Zhaoluan would grab Lei Xingfeng with one hand and Qi Meiyun with the other and pull them back. The two of them were confused. Lei Xingfeng said, "Senior brother, what are you doing?" Qi Meiyun was even more angry. She said, "Hey, senior brother, why are you hiding?" With this delay, the group of people over there had already seen the five of them. They heard a laugh, and then the group of people rushed over. Not only was Xian Feng dumbfounded, even Qi Meiyun was dumbfounded. She had never seen anyone more arrogant than them. They didn't even try to dodge. Instead, they charged forward and surrounded the five of them. Lei Xingfeng looked at them coldly. There were more than 20 people in total, and they were all perfected masters. However, their levels were much lower. Most of them were perfected masters with 1 or 2 rings. There were very few perfected masters with 3 rings. Lei Xingfeng couldn't see their cultivation levels, but he guessed that they were experts. Lei. Qi. With, "How dare you surround us?" The woman in the lead stared at Xian Zhaoluan and said, "You're not dead yet." Qi Meiyun was furious and said, "You're courting death." She moved and was about to attack, but Xian Zhaoluan grabbed her and said, "Junior sister, wait." Then he said to the woman, "Lu Yuan, that's enough. I've been harmed by you once. We're even." Lei Xingfeng immediately understood that the two of them must have some other entanglement. Otherwise, Xian Zhaoluan wouldn't have said that. Lu Yuan was not a beautiful woman, which surprised Lei Xingfeng. She was tall and strong, with plump breasts and plump buttocks. Her skin was snow white and her appearance was very ordinary, but she had a different kind of charm. Lei Xingfeng muttered to himself, "Senior brother's taste is quite heavy. He likes this kind of woman." In fact, he also knew that this kind of woman was very tempting to some men. Lu Yuan's voice was very loud and clear. She said, "Even, you're dreaming. If you don't die, I won't be able to get rid of the hatred in my heart." Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but say, "Senior brother, did you do that to him?" Xian Zhaoluan didn't react for a moment and said, "Do what?" Lei Xingfeng touched his nose. He was too embarrassed to say it directly. He said with a little lack of confidence, "It's that. Qi Meiyun suddenly reacted. Her face suddenly turned red. She slapped Lei Xingfeng on the shoulder and said, "You little kid, you're thinking too much. How could it be that?" She couldn't say it out loud. However, Xian Zhaoluan understood. He sighed and said, "That was a misunderstanding. I can't explain it clearly." Lu Yuan's face turned red. She said angrily, "You bastard." She was scolding Lei Xingfeng. Mad Eagle and Tiger Love couldn't stand it. The two of them took a step forward at the same time. Their huge aura directly crushed the crowd. The two of them shouted at the same time, "Shut up." Just these 2 words gave people the feeling that the wind and clouds changed and the pressure of the mountains and rivers changed. The group of people couldn't stand still and took a step back together. Lu Yuan's face suddenly turned pale. She realized that the strength of these two people was actually unfathomable. Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you have the support of an expert. Lu Yuan said, "Send the signal and summon our people." No one stopped Lu Yuan and the group. Soon, the group sent the signal. Xian Jialuan's face gradually darkened. He had been holding back and trying to resolve the situation, but the other party was unwilling to let him go. If it was just him, it would be fine, but there was a junior sister and a junior brother beside him. He couldn't hold back anymore. In just a few moments, two people arrived. One was a lean woman, and the other was a man with a huge head. When Lu Yuan saw the woman, she rushed over and hugged the woman. She said coquettishly, "Uncle Master, they're bullying me." The woman's gaze swept over them like a blade. With just one glance, her expression changed. Even with her cultivation, she couldn't see through Xian Jialuan's cultivation. As for the other four, two of them had 8th ring, one 7th ring, and even the child had 3 true ring bodies. It was a frightening sight. Lu Yuan continued, "Uncle Master, kill them, kill them." Lei Xingfeng shook his head slightly. He said, "Senior brother, she wants to kill us." The woman let go of Lu Yuan and walked in front of the 5 people. She said, "Lu Weihu, 8th ring true body, true hearting master." The big-headed man beside Lu Weihu also stepped forward. "Batong, 9th ring true body, Ashen Seal enlightened master." Xian Feng couldn't help but laugh bitterly in his heart. 8th or 9th ringed true masters were as if they didn't cost anything. Why were they everywhere? In the past, he thought that true masters were amazing, but now it seemed like they weren't worth anything. They could be found all over the streets. Any one of them was an 8th or 9th ringed true master. No wonder Master didn't allow him to run around alone. This world was truly dangerous. The opponent's methods were very formal, so Xian Jialuan could only step forward and say, "Xian Jialuan, 9th ring true body, Ashen Seal enlightened master." LV Yuan was immediately frightened. She covered her mouth and said, You, Xian Jialuan shook his head helplessly. "9th ring true body, it's nothing. You don't have to be so surprised." LV Yuan always thought that Xian Jialuan was only slightly stronger than her, at most having 6th ring sage body. She didn't expect him to have 9th ring sage body. She always looked down on Xian Jialuan, but she didn't expect him to be so strong. Xian Jialuan sighed. "This is between me and Lu Yuan. Don't get involved. Let my junior sister and brother leave." Lu Yuan sneered. "Let them leave. With your strength, we can't keep you here. Stop dreaming. Surrender." Xian Jialuan sighed again. "If that's the case, then I have nothing to worry about." "Haha, do you really think you're going to eat us?" He let out a long howl. Suddenly, 30 people flew out from all directions of the city. In a few breaths, they surrounded Lu Yuan and the others. They were all high-level true masters. There were even 9th ring true masters. They all landed around Lu Yuan and the others. Batong glanced at them, and his face turned pale. This group of people was too scary. This wasn't a strength that a big force could have. They were more like the disciples of a reclusive supermaster. No one dared to offend this kind of reclusive master. They rarely appeared, but when they did, their strength was terrifying to the extreme. Lu Weihu also panicked. The opponent's strength was beyond imagination. If they fought, she and Ba Tong might have a chance to escape, but the others couldn't. Even she and Ba Tong might not be able to escape. Ba Tong already had a plan in his mind. He couldn't fight. Once they fought, it would definitely be out of his control. The opponent's strength was enough to completely destroy his side. Even if he had more people, they still wouldn't have any chance of winning. He said, "Little Yuan, back off. This isn't something you can decide." LV Yuan didn't expect Xian Jialuan to be so strong. She always thought that Xian Jialuan was just a cultivator without a sect, and that he was just a bit stronger. Relying on her sect's strength, she didn't hesitate to poison him. She didn't expect him to escape, and she didn't expect them to meet again so soon. Lei Xingfeng couldn't figure out why Xian Jialuan was so cowardly, but he clearly felt the killing intent from the opponent. If the guards didn't come quickly, he was sure that the opponent would have attacked without restraint. He couldn't help but whisper, "Senior brother, you called the guards back too early." Qi Meiyun's face was livid. She clearly heard the threat just now. With her temper, even if her junior sister Yin Yao was unreasonable, she wouldn't hesitate to fight back. She had even less reason to back off from the threat of this group of unfamiliar experts. One must know that Qi Meiyun's personal guard was a 9th ring sage with an ashen seal. How could she be afraid of this group of people? She said, "Senior brother, since they want to kill me, how can we avoid them? Then let's kill them." Ba Tong understood. He shouted, "Wait." He walked to Lu Yuan's side and said, "What's going on?" Only now did he remember to ask why there was a conflict. If his strength suppressed everything, he wouldn't care who was in the right or wrong. He would kill first. Lu Yuan said, He bullied me." Ba Tong said, "How did he bully you?" Lu Yuan said, He kissed me." Lei Xingfeng looked at Xian Jialuan in disbelief and said, "For this she used poison to besiege you and almost killed you? Senior brother, you are too. He couldn't say anything. Senior brother, you're too cowardly." Chapter 110. Ba Tong and Lu Weihu looked at each other. This was too dramatic. He was a 9th ring expert. Even if he looked a little ugly, he shouldn't be like this. Qi Meiyun was completely stunned. She looked at Xian Jialuan in disbelief, and then at Lu Yuan. After a while, she said, "Damn it, what's going on?" Xian Jialuan's face was red. He was at a loss. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and thought, Otaku. This is a typical otaku. He doesn't know anything. Senior brother is so pitiful." Ba Tong said, "That's it." Lu Yuan said angrily, "Isn't that enough? He bullied me." Xian Jialuan said sadly, "I was presumptuous and made you suffer. From now on, you and I will no longer have anything to do with each other. It was wishful thinking on my part. Let's go our separate ways in the future." He was disheartened. Lei Xingfeng knew that it was better not to get involved in matters of the heart. With Xian Jialuan's strength, if he didn't have true feelings, he wouldn't be so easy to talk to. Qi Meiyun was about to go up and argue with him, but Lei Xingfeng grabbed her arm and whispered, "Senior sister, let senior brother handle it. If he wants to do it, then do it. If he wants to let go, then let go." Xian Jialuan looked at Lei Xingfeng gratefully. Even so, he didn't want to fight to the death with the other party. LV Yuan suddenly didn't know what to say. She had never felt that she had gone overboard, and had always thought that she had been wronged. With her status, killing the other party after being wronged was not a problem at all. However, when she found out that the other party's strength far exceeded her own, she didn't know how to deal with it. She was a spoiled woman. Ba Tong and Lu Weihu looked at each other again. Both of them were helpless. Lu Weihu said, "Since it didn't cause any losses, then forget it. This is just a small misunderstanding." Qi Meiyun couldn't help but say, "Misunderstanding? Do you know that your bullshit marshal nephew poisoned my senior brother because of this? If it wasn't for Master, my senior brother would have died. Small misunderstanding? Motherf asterisk cur. Just a kiss, and you're already so vicious. Who do you think you are? Will you die if you touch me? You look like a vixen. I don't know how you deceived my senior brother. My senior brother must have been blind to have fallen for you. You, Xin Jaluan hurriedly said. Junior Marshal sister. Junior sister, forget it. Chi Meiyun was so angry that she stomped her feet. According to her temper, she wouldn't have quarreled with the other party. She would have just gone up and killed them. If it weren't for her senior brother stopping her, she wouldn't have just cursed them. Lu Yuan's face turned green. She had never been scolded like this in her entire life. She immediately exploded. Aya, who do you think you are? Before she could scold them, she was forcefully pulled to the side by Ba Tong. He scolded in a low voice. Shut up. Lu Weihu also said in a low voice, Lu Yuan, don't be rash. We're not strong enough. We'll suffer if we act rashly. Lu Yuan clenched her teeth and said, I'll kill him. I'll kill him. She hated Chi Meiyun and Xin Jaluan. Ba Tong said, We'll talk when we get back. Now shut your mouth. Lu Yuan unwillingly retreated to the side. Even if she was furious, she had to endure it. If the conflict escalated, they would definitely be the ones to die. Ba Tong and Lu Weihu were very clear about this. With their knowledge and experience, how could they let the conflict escalate? It was almost the same as courting death. In fact, not only did Chi Meiyun want to make a move, even Lei Xingfeng wanted to make a move. The strength of this group of people was really not bad. Once they became enemies, it would be very troublesome. However, Xin Jaluan refused. Although he despaired of Lu Yuan, he did not want to kill them. There were strong people on both sides stopping them. Therefore, this battle was destined to be impossible. Lei Xingfeng muttered, It would be good if Master was here. He believed that if Master was here, these people would not be able to survive. Chi Meiyun nodded vigorously. She was very dissatisfied with Xin Jaluan's cowardice. Xin Jaluan could not help but smile bitterly in his heart. He had lost all his face and was directly despised by his junior brothers and sisters. However, he did not regret it in his heart. He really did not want to kill Lu Yuan, even if she was so insidious. Both sides retreated. Soon, Ba Tong and Lu Weihu left with a group of people. Chi Meiyun looked unhappy and said, It was not easy to find a group of opponents. Senior brother, just let them go. What a pity. Lei Xingfeng said, Senior sister, do you want to fight? Chi Meiyun said, Nonsense, what a good opportunity. You were so confident. The opponent was weak. They were not weak to the extent that you could not make a move. They were good opponents. You could have happily tortured them. But senior brother wasted it. AI, what a good opportunity. What a pity. Lei Xingfeng was stunned and said, Don't you want to avenge senior brother? Chi Meiyun said, Revenge is just an excuse. Humph, it's a pity that senior brother did not want to do it. Lei Xingfeng finally understood that Chi Meiyun was fighting for the sake of fighting. She did not care about any reason. It was good to have a reason. Even if there was no reason, she could still fight. This fellow was a bit violent. Moreover, she liked to fight weaker opponents and bully people. Senior sister, there is still a chance. There is still a chance. Xian Feng didn't know what to say. His senior brother was a weirdo. His senior sister wasn't bad either. Both of them were of the highest quality. However, he didn't feel much resistance. He actually liked this kind of senior brother and senior sister. Chi Meiyun said, Everyone, disperse. Go find your own entertainment. Don't surround us. She shooed the guards away as if they were flies. She turned around and said, Senior brother, you have to compensate me. Xian Jaluan said, I'll treat you to a drink, okay? Lei Xingfeng knew that Xian Jaluan was depressed. He said, Okay. Is there a hotel here? Chi Meiyun muttered, What's so good about drinking? Really? In fact, She also knew that senior brother was sad, so she did not refuse to drink. Xian Jialuan said, I know a big hotel. It's a hotel in Taimeng. Follow me. The five of them walked along the street. After walking for a few minutes, they saw a group of buildings. There was a big wooden sign with the word wine written on it. Lei Xingfeng said, Is this the place? Xian Jialuan said, This is the place. Let's go to the place where cultivators drink. Cultivators did not drink with ordinary people. It was not that they looked down on ordinary people, but the distance between the two was too far. Therefore, this hotel had a special building for cultivators to eat and drink. Taimeng was very powerful here. In addition, Taimeng was also an organization of cultivators. Therefore, this hotel was a very good place for cultivators to transmit information. The hotel waiter had good eyesight. He immediately recognized that they were all cultivators and not ordinary ones. Therefore, he respectfully invited them to the hall at the back. There were no private rooms or anything like that. The hall was very spacious. There were about 100 tables. As soon as a guest came in, the waiter would immediately come in and block them with a screen. Therefore, the empty seats could be seen at a glance. Xian Jialuan chose a big table by the window. Immediately, the waiter lifted a few screens and set up a small space. There was another table by the side, but it was blocked by a screen. Lei Xingfeng did not know who they were, but they could clearly hear the conversation next door. After all, it was just a screen. Sound could not be blocked. Other than Taimeng, what other powerful sects are there? The clear voice was very familiar to Lei Xingfeng. The others also turned to look. Unfortunately, with the screen blocking them, they could not see anything. In just a few seconds, Qi Meiyun was the first to react. She said in surprise, Xiao Yao? As she spoke, she pulled open the screen. Yin Yao was sitting on a chair. There were two people kneeling on the floor. They were both cultivators, but they were only 1,000 Luan masters. They should have taught Yin Yao a lesson. Both of them had bruises on their noses and eyes that were filled with tears. Yin Yao also looked up in surprise. She suddenly shouted, Wow, what a coincidence. Good, I finally caught you. Senior, you said you would bring me out. Why did you sneak away? Xian Jialuan was speechless. He was not a quick-witted person. After stuttering for a long time, he said, When we left, we looked for you. We said you went out. So forget it. Yin Yao said angrily, Senior, you're talking nonsense. I've been waiting at home. I didn't go anywhere. Senior, you're bullying me. Xian Jialuan's head was about to explode. He hurriedly said, It's my fault. I'll apologize to junior sister. Yin Yao snorted. She rolled her eyes and said, Senior, you have to compensate me. Lei Xingfeng could not help but laugh. With Senior's temper, he would definitely be taken advantage of by these two junior sisters. Xian Jialuan hurriedly said, Of course. What does junior sister want? I'll find it for you. He. Qi Meiyun rolled her eyes and said, What's there to compensate? Don't you know that you're very annoying? No one likes to bring you out. Yin Yao was so angry that she got up and rushed over, saying, I'll kill you. Xian Jialuan waved his hand and separated the two. He said with a headache, Junior sisters, don't make trouble. I'm old and can't stand you. Sit down and get ready to eat. Lei Xingfeng pondered in his heart. He could not understand why Qi Meiyun and Yin Yao were like firewood and fire whenever they met. It was as if they would not have peace if they did not fight at least once. Moreover, he could also see that although the two of them were fighting fiercely, if they encountered an enemy, they would immediately join forces to fight. He wisely hid aside. Only a fool would interfere. It was better not to get involved in a fight between women. Xian Jialuan was senior, and he could not ignore it. Therefore, he forcibly separated the two of them. Yin Yao and Chi Meiyun also understood that with Senior they would not fight. The two of them found a chair and sat down resentfully. Yin Yao said to the two cultivators, "Get out." "Oh, right, pay the bill later. Remember, don't even think about running away." The two cultivators felt as if they had been pardoned. They said repeatedly, "We don't dare, we don't dare." The two of them ran away as if they had pissed their pants. However, they did not dare to leave the hotel. Instead, they found the boss and paid for Yin Yao's banquet. The two of them were very clear that the other party's strength was boundless. The two of them were not a match at all. If they did not want to die, they had to follow the other party's instructions. All kinds of dishes were served. Lei Xingfeng said, "Well, we haven't ordered yet, have we?" Chapter 111. Yin Yao said, "Someone is treating us. Why do you have so much to say when you are eating for free?" Lei Xingfeng could not help but curse. "You are the idiot!" However, he did not have the courage to scold his senior sister directly. He knew that this senior sister was a demoness who killed without batting an eyelid. The dishes tasted very good. Lei Xingfeng ate in big mouthfuls. He was very satisfied with his strong digestive ability in this world because it meant that as long as he liked a certain dish, he could eat it all in one go. Of course, this strong digestive ability also made him suffer a lot when he first arrived in this world. At that time, his biggest headache was not having enough food. It was simply unbearable. A large wooden plate was brought up. There were a total of 5 roasted chickens. Everyone present were practitioners, and no matter male or female, their appetites were all terrifying. With 1 roasted chicken per person, it only took them a few minutes to finish it all. Xian Feng could not help but praise. "This roasted chicken is truly delicious." Yin Yao said, "Then let's have another plate." Immediately, a waiter brought over another plate. Lei Xingfeng was full of praise as he ate. His requirements were actually very low. As long as the taste was okay and he could eat until he was full, it would be good enough. If it was delicious, then he would have profited. Cultivators did not have many rules when it came to eating. There were very few cultivators who ate slowly, so the meal was over in half an hour. Lei Xingfeng touched his stomach. It was about 80% full. He was very satisfied. In his life, he had only eaten until he was full 2 or 3 times. Most of the time, he was not full. If he could eat until he was 80% full, then he would have used up a lot of food. Fortunately, he did not lack money now, so he could eat as much as he wanted. Lei Xingfeng finally got rid of the fear of hunger. The others were obviously not as confused as Lei Xingfeng. They ate very sparingly. Even so, the table was full of empty wooden plates. "Brother Xian. Ha! It really is Brother Xian." I didn't believe it, but I didn't expect it to be true. A man opened the screen and said, happily. Xian Jialuan also stood up and said, "Ferran, ha! Your nose is quite sharp. How did you know I was here?" Ferran was a big man. He was wearing a large gray linen robe. He was not eye-catching at all, but his figure was extremely majestic. He had a square head, a big face, thick eyebrows, a wide mouth, and a pair of bright eyes. He seemed very happy. He said, "You came to my territory, but you didn't say anything. That's not good." Xian Jialuan laughed and said, "We just arrived. We were going to look for you after we finished eating. Who knew that you would come looking for us yourself?" "Ha ha!" Ferran thought, how could I not know about the sudden appearance of such a powerful group of fellows? He said, "It's a group of ignorant subordinates. When they saw you, they were so scared that they hurriedly reported it. I was still wondering which group of great masters came. I didn't expect it to be you. Old brother, ha!" He was also glad that the people who came were people he knew. If they were unfamiliar masters, he would have a headache. Exion Jaluan said, "It's not just us. Come, sit down. Let's talk. We haven't seen each other for a long time." Ferran certainly knew that there was another group of masters, but he recognized them. He sat down with a smile, looked around, and said, "These people are very unfamiliar. Are you old brother's friends?" Exion Jaluan said, "Let me introduce you. My junior sister, Chi Meiyun, Yin Yao, little junior brother, Lei Xingfeng. And you can call him Big Brother Fei. He's a local snake. Haha, he's the biggest local snake. In this area, no matter what happens, he can solve it." Chi Meiyun, Yin Yao, and Lei Xingfeng stood up and bowed. Lei Xingfeng understood that this was the power of connections. No matter where, as long as you have the help of a local snake, you would be able to get a lot of help. He wouldn't reject such a good thing. Ferran smiled and bowed. He looked at Tiger Love and Mad Eagle. These two had similar strength as him. Lei Xingfeng smiled. "Let me introduce you. This is Tiger Love, this is Mad Eagle. Ha! They're both true Heart-Ean masters with 8-ring bodies." Tiger Love and Mad Eagle nodded. Mad Eagle said, "Don't mind us, we're Feng's guards." Ferran's legs went soft. 2 true Heart-Ean masters with 8-ring bodies as guards. Could you be any more extravagant? Even if you want to scare people, you shouldn't do it like this. In the entire Taimeng, he was the only old ancestor level expert with 8-ring bodies and true Heart-Ean masters. These 2 guards were twice as strong as him. What was there to say? His heart was in a mess. Only now did he realize how strong Exion Jaluan's background was. Lei Xingfeng found that Ferran's smile was even more amiable and gentle. His attitude also seemed to have improved. Fei Luan's attitude was not bad. These people were enough to destroy a city. Moreover, if he could form a relationship with these experts, the benefits would only be greater. It was obvious that these people were not from a sect. Sects rarely had such powerful forces. Only those sects that lived in seclusion or a group of experts that had been raised by a super expert. After chatting for a while, Lei Xingfeng found that the sects on this continent weren't that strong. It was just that they controlled a large area and could bring in a lot of resources. Following that, Lei Xingfeng faintly discovered that the status of these sects was actually at the bottom of this world. They were only slightly stronger than normal people. This was because Exion Jaluan and Ferran were trading large amounts of goods. The currency used was also something that Lei Xingfeng had never seen before. It was even his first time hearing about it. Luan Ring, Luanine Ring, Yin Ring. It was completely different from the gold, silver, and bronze rings of the normal world. Its value was much higher. Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "What are Luan rings, Luanine rings, and Yin rings?" "Let me see." Exion Jaluan smiled. "That's the currency used by us high-level cultivators. It can be used for cultivation. With your level, you can't make them yourself. At the very least, only true monarchs can barely make Ashen Seal." Lei Xingfeng was stunned. He said, "Ah, 9th ring true body, true monarch?" Exion Jaluan said, "Yes, it can allow cultivators to absorb it and quickly increase their cultivation." Ferran said, "Using this method can increase the number of experts. However, there's a huge flaw. It's very difficult to use this method to reach 9th ring true body. Hee. In other words, this kind of ring is useless at 9th ring true body. At most, it can be used to prolong one's life." Lei Xingfeng turned around and asked, "Uncle Tiger, Uncle Ling, what kind of rings do you use?" Tiger Love and Mad Eagle nodded. "Yes, a foam. We used Luan rings, Luanine rings, and Yin rings to cultivate. We're different from you." Exion Jaluan said, "A foam, you're not allowed to use this. Otherwise, Master will go crazy." Lei Xingfeng immediately understood why Master gathered so many experts. So, this was the reason. True direct disciples definitely couldn't use these methods to cultivate. The reason why there were so few experts in the various sects was because they didn't have these rings. In other words, these rings were very rare and couldn't be supplied in large quantities. They had to be exchanged with large amounts of resources. He asked, "Senior sister, you haven't used them either?" Chi Meiyan said, "Don't be silly. If you use those things once you reach 9th ring true body, you can forget about advancing." Faran smiled bitterly. "That's for people like us to use. Hee, this is already a great thing. In the sects, only extremely talented people are qualified to use them. If they're ordinary, they won't be able to use them at all." Lei Xingfeng said, "Senior brother, can I ask Master for them?" Xian Zhaoluan said, "What do you want?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Those rings." Yin Yao interrupted, "Little idiot, you already have one. All of us direct disciples have one. There's a lot. You didn't take it yourself." Lei Xingfeng was a little confused for a moment. He said, "Aren't we not allowed to use them? Why do I have one?" Yin Yao raised her hand and knocked him on the head. "You're still not convinced, little idiot. Can't you use them yourself? Can't you give yourself credit? Can't you go shopping?" Xian Feng was suddenly enlightened. He found it funny money can move a person's heart. He nodded and laughed. That's right. Hee, senior sister, how many rings can I get?" At that moment, he became extremely greedy. Xian Zhaoluan said, "Go home and ask your housekeeper. He should be able to get them." Lei Xingfeng said, "Sai, Ishannel, he didn't tell me. I'll settle this with him when I get back. All right, those rings, someone show me." Xian Zhaoluan took out 3 types of rings and handed them to Lei Xingfeng. She also told him which one was a Luan ring, which one was a Yin ring, and which one was a Luan Yin ring. The Luan rings were very easy to identify. They were completely transparent, like glass products from his previous world. They were round and hollow, one size larger than a coin from his previous world. Holding them in his hand, he felt a cool sensation. The Luan Yin rings had 7 colors. They were translucent and were the same size as the Luan rings. Looking at them carefully, each layer was like an onion. Every layer had a different color. Under the refraction of light, they looked exceptionally beautiful. The Yin rings were completely different. They were deep purple like jade, but had a metallic texture. They gave off a strange feeling of luxury. Xian Zhaoluan said, "Don't use your Luan Yin force. Otherwise, it will quickly absorb them." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "I understand. I won't do that." Xian Zhaoluan said, "Actually, you don't have to be nervous. As long as you don't use them to increase your cultivation, it'll be fine. When you're in danger, for example, when your Luan Yin force is completely exhausted, these things can be of great help. They can quickly replenish your lost Luan Yin force." Lei Xingfeng finally understood why these things were so valuable. Not only could they increase one's cultivation, they could also be used as a medicine to replenish one's strength. It was no wonder that he didn't know about them. Those who had these things would definitely hide them well. They definitely wouldn't use them casually. If the golden and silver rings were cash, then these things were like checks. Lei Xingfeng asked, "How do I exchange them?" Chi Meiyan giggled. "It's not expensive. 100 golden rings can be exchanged for 1 Luan ring. Of course, whether or not there's anyone to exchange with you is another matter. As for the exchange between Luan rings and Luan Yin rings, 10,000 Luan rings for 1 Luan Yin ring. 1 Luan Yin ring for 1 Yin ring. That's 10,000 for 1. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but click his tongue. 10,000 for 1? That's too much. Chapter 112. Faran said, "It's not an exaggeration. Actually, if Brother Xian is willing, I'd rather have een rings. Not to mention 10,000 een rings for one een ring. Even if it was 11,000 een rings for one een ring, I'd still do it. It's definitely worth it. Farhan said, in your dreams. I don't even have that many een rings. If I use them in many places, I won't have enough. A phone, if you can use Luan rings, don't use een rings. If you can use Luan rings, don't use een rings. Especially een rings. Don't use a single een ring. Lei Xingfeng clicked his tongue. They're that precious. Qi Meiyun laughed. Yin Yao said, you don't know anything, little idiot. Farhan shook his head with a wry smile. He really was an ignorant brat. He asked curiously, how old are you? He thought that Lei Xingfeng only looked young, so he shouldn't be that young, so he asked subconsciously. Lei Xingfeng was still immersed in the preciousness of een rings, so he didn't answer. Xian Jialuan said, he's only 17. Farhan couldn't help but let out a strange cry. What? He was shocked. A 17-year-old with 3 true ring bodies. He was sure that Lei Xingfeng didn't use Luan rings or anything like that. Even if he did, he couldn't have reached such heights. The initial age of cultivation was the same everywhere. Before the age of 16, there was no need to even think about cultivating. Forcing oneself to cultivate not only had poor results, it could even lead to death. In other words, Lei Xingfeng had cultivated for more than a year, definitely less than 2 years. What kind of talent did he have to reach such a level? He couldn't imagine it at all. He wasn't a low-level practitioner. He controlled a large organization and had seen countless practitioners. It was his first time seeing such an unbelievable genius. No wonder it was the address of a hidden expert. Lei Xingfeng actually knew that he had advanced too quickly. Although his foundation wasn't unstable, his battle strength was still too weak. He couldn't compare to others who climbed up step by step. However, he still had a huge advantage. He relied on his own level to suppress his opponent. He used the simplest and most violent method to fight. Yin Yao said softly, "What's there to be surprised about?" She was actually even more surprised than Farhan. With her level of cultivation, she hadn't even reached 1,000 Luan Master at 17. She had only reached 1,000 Luan Master at 18. So when she heard Lei Xingfeng's level, she felt dizzy for a day. Her heart was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. Farhan and Xian Jialuan started discussing again. It was rare for Xian Jialuan to come. If he let him go so easily, he wouldn't be Farhan. Not all experts had Yin rings, especially those who had large amounts of Luan, and Yin rings. Xian Jialuan was like a moving treasury, so he couldn't wait for them to go to the Tai Meng headquarters. He couldn't wait to make the transaction in the hotel. In just a moment, the two had completed the transaction. Xian Feng looked at him coldly. This time, Xian Jialuan only paid a few dozen Luan Yin rings, not a single Yin ring. Fei Luan had a dissatisfied expression. He really wanted a Yin ring, but unfortunately, the items he collected weren't enough to exchange for a Yin ring. Xian Jialuan's expression was clearly satisfied. He said, "Okay, let's go to Brother Fei's Tai Meng today. His place is better than the hotel." Farhan smiled. "Of course. If you don't come to Tai Meng by the time you reach Yicheng, that won't do. Everyone, please." During the few days in Tai Meng, Lei Xingfeng didn't leave his house. He had been thinking about how to find Yi and his sister. He regretted that he hadn't agreed on a place to meet up if they got separated. His sister had been taken away directly. He didn't know where she was taken. It seemed to be the Wanxi continent, but the Wanxi continent was incomparably large. Without a clear location, finding his sister would be like finding a needle in a haystack. It was an almost impossible task. Other than thinking about how to find his sister, Lei Xingfeng spent the rest of his time reading the Star Python records. The newly obtained records were definitely very powerful. There were many records he had never heard of before. There were also various techniques and methods for refining items. He only had a rough understanding of them. He planned to study them in detail when he was completely free. Right now, he could only skim through them briefly. Even so, he estimated that it would take at least a few months. After a few days of reading, Lei Xingfeng didn't come up empty-handed. He found a record in the Star Python records. It was a bone he had obtained in the ancient hidden Luan. It looked like the bone of an astral beast recorded in the Star Python records. If he wanted to be sure, he would need to do some small experiments. However, he was almost certain that the bone he had obtained was from that astral beast. It could be used to make weapons. According to the records, this bone could be used to make the tip of a lightning spear. Lei Xingfeng also needed a spear handle. This spear handle couldn't be replaced by pure steel. He needed to find a few materials to make it. It needed a certain ratio. He also needed the help of a fire attribute expert to make it. Luckily, fire attribute experts were easy to find. Especially after becoming a disciple, it was even easier to find a truly powerful fire attribute expert. Lei Xingfeng started to organize his hidden Luan space. For a moment, he was troubled by the things in his hidden Luan space. There were too many things, and he didn't know how to organize them. Most of them were obtained from the ancient hidden Luan space. He sorted them out carefully. Lei Xingfeng was someone who liked cleanliness and order in his previous life. In this life, he was much more lazy. That was why his hidden Luan space was so messy. It took a long time to organize. One must know that his hidden Luan space was no longer the small space it used to be. After becoming a true master, his hidden Luan space expanded many times. That was why all the things were scattered in the space. He needed to organize them bit by bit. Just as Lei Xingfeng was busy organizing, Xian Zhaoluan came looking for him. "Afong, are you free?" Lei Xingfeng said. "Senior brother, what's the matter?" He was very curious. Ever since he came to the center of Tai Meng, he didn't see his two senior sisters. He didn't know where they went to play. Xian Zhaoluan laughed. "If you're free, come with me. Hee, there's something fun to do." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "What kind of fun?" "If it's shopping, then forget it. If it's a fight, and I'll go." Xian Zhaoluan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What? Everything was fine. Why would they fight? He immediately reacted and said, "They left a long time ago. How could they fight?" Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Okay, then what are we going to do?" Xian Zhaoluan said, "Tai Meng is accepting disciples. Brother Fei said that if there are disciples with good potential, he can give them to us. How about it? Are you going?" Lei Xingfeng didn't understand. He said, "You want to accept disciples?" Xian Zhaoluan said, "Why would I accept disciples? You don't need to have people under you in the future. If there are people with good potential, you can take them and train them. Won't you have people to use then?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't lack people either." Xian Zhaoluan couldn't help but smile bitterly and said, "Afong, don't you understand? What Master gives you is different from what you train yourself. In the future, if Master has any problems, you will have your own people." Lei Xingfeng's heart jumped. He asked, This is training my own power? Does Master allow it?" Xian Zhaoluan said, "Nonsense! Of course Master allows it. Master even encourages it. Are you going or not? If not, I'll go by myself." He was slightly impatient. Lei Xingfeng said straightforwardly, "Of course I'm going. Why wouldn't I go?" Lei Xingfeng immediately understood. This was a good opportunity to train his own power. Why would he reject it? Although he didn't know how many Luin, Luanine, and Een rings he would get, he was sure that using them to train his subordinates wouldn't be a problem. If he started training them now, after 10 years, he would have a group of subordinates that he could use. No matter what he did in the future, having a group of subordinates and not having any subordinates were two completely different concepts. The two sat in Tai Meng's car and quickly arrived at Tai Meng's manor outside the city. The annual disciple recruitment was a very grand event in Tai Meng. Every year, Tai Meng would recruit a group of disciples. In the area under Tai Meng's control, there were more than 10 million people. Every year, even if only 1% of the population reached the age of 16 and could cultivate, there would still be more than 100,000 people. Among them, there would be about 10,000 people who had the qualifications to cultivate. Among them, there would at least be a few hundred, if not 1,000 people who were suitable to be recruited. Among a few hundred people, there would be a few with good potential. It wasn't a rare thing. Ferran had this plan. He wanted to sell some of the disciples who were waiting to be recruited. He needed Luin rings, Luanine rings, and Een rings. Unfortunately, even if he sold these disciples, he wouldn't be able to get Een rings. Of course, if there were really talented disciples, he wouldn't be willing to trade them for Een rings. Lei Xingfeng and Xian Zhaoluan got out of the car. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Where did the senior sisters go?" Xian Zhaoluan said, "Who knows? Maybe they found a place to fight again. Sai, I can't do anything about them. As long as they don't die, I don't think Master will blame me." Lei Xingfeng's scalp went numb. He was the victim. These two senior sisters were crazy when they fought. He huffed. "I don't know what kind of grudge those two have," Xian Zhaoluan said. "They don't have any grudges. They just don't like each other." Plus, there were a few small things that caused it to escalate to this point. They fight whenever they see each other. If Master and senior brothers aren't here, they'll fight like crazy. Forget it. Let's not talk about this. Talking about this gives me a headache. Ferran led a large group of more than 100 people to welcome them. He shouted, "Brother Xian, hee, a phone, come here." Lei Xingfeng realized that the people behind Ferran were all staring at him curiously. Xian Zhaoluan nodded. "Brother Fei, how's the preparation?" Ferran smiled. "It's going to start soon. Brother Xian, a phone, let me introduce you." He pointed to an old man beside him. "Tai Meng's great leader. Han Tian Chop, great leader Han. Hee, our Tai Meng's famous true Een master." Lei Xingfeng thought, "True Een master, a true Een master with 6 true ring bodies. In this big sect, he can already be the great leader, although there's still a great elder like Ferran above him. In Tai Meng, he's probably a big shot." Chapter 113. Xian Zhaoluan nodded indifferently. "Nice to meet you, nice to meet you." Ferran introduced, "This is my older brother, Xian Zhaoluan, a 9th ring sage with the Ashen Seal." There was an uproar. In this group of people, most of them were experts with 1 or 2 true ring bodies. A few of them were experts with 3 or 4 true ring bodies, and a few of them were experts with 5 or 6 true ring bodies. Above them was Ferran, Tai Meng's only expert with 8 true ring bodies, a true heart Een master. Who would have thought that this ordinary-looking half-bald old man would be a terrifying 9th ring sage with the Ashen Seal? This was too frightening. Ferran said, "Quiet." Everyone looked at Xian Zhaoluan with eyes full of respect. This was very clear. Lei Xingfeng also knew that in this world, strong people were extremely worshipped. It was similar to the people in his previous world who worshipped money. When they saw rich people, they would be envious and jealous. This world didn't care too much about money because this world was very big and it was relatively easy to obtain food. Instead, People with strength were envious and respectful. Ferran said, "This is Senior Xian's junior brother, Lei Xingfeng, 17 years old with 3 true ring bodies, a true Luanine master." Another bomb, another uproar. It took a while for the crowd to calm down. Lei Xingfeng tried his best to maintain a smile, but in his heart, he was cursing. He didn't want to be in the limelight at all. Next was to meet each other. Ferran patiently introduced the upper echelons of Tai Meng to the two, Xi and Jiaoluan, and Lei Xingfeng became the most respected guests of Tai Meng. With Xi and Jiaoluan's strength, he was definitely a senior expert, and Lei Xingfeng was also Xi and Jiaoluan's junior brother, so he was respected as a senior. After a while, Lei Xingfeng was about to break out in cold sweat. He snuck a glance at Xi and Jiaoluan and saw that his senior brother was also impatient in this kind of situation, but to give Ferran some face, he forced himself to endure. Seeing his senior brother's painful expression, Lei Xingfeng immediately felt much better. Lei Xingfeng had the experience of his previous life, so he wasn't unfamiliar with social interactions. If he was really a wild brat from the mountains, he would have turned around and left. Xi and Jiaoluan saw Lei Xingfeng conversing with people and was very curious. This child seemed to have seen the world. He wasn't anxious or impatient, and had the appearance of a big shot. Don't look at his young face, but whether it was his speech or expression, it matched the strength of a true Luanine master. After a round, Lei Xingfeng was so busy that he broke out in cold sweat. He didn't remember many people. After all, there were too many people. Almost all the important people of Tai Meng were here. Other than Tai Meng's great leader, Han Tianchop, Xi and Jiaoluan didn't remember anyone else. He also didn't want to remember, because if he left here, he didn't know when he would return. Generally speaking, in a place, having a friend with a high enough status was enough. After a long time of meeting, Ferran brought the group back to the manor. On the way, they saw a lot of carriages heading towards the manor. There were all kinds of carriages, horse carriages, ox carts, carts, horses, and so on. It was bustling with activity and was very lively. There were a lot of Tai Meng disciples maintaining the security. Very quickly, Ferran and the rest arrived at the back of the manor. In this group of people, most of them had already dispersed. They all had their own missions. As for the top 10 people, they were the most idle people. These people were chatting in the back hall, waiting for the selection in front. Lei Xingfeng was bored sitting there, so he said, "I'll go take a look in front." Ferran immediately ordered a few Tai Meng disciples to accompany him. These Tai Meng disciples were all direct disciples of the inner hall. Their status in Tai Meng was not ordinary. Of course, their status couldn't be compared to Lei Xingfeng's. The person leading them was a disciple of Tai Meng's great leader. His name was Arctic Harrier. He was 25 years old this year, a mill wheel master, almost able to condense a true ring body. He was a famous genius disciple in Tai Meng. Arctic Harrier already knew that Lei Xingfeng was a 17-year-old true Luanine master. If Lei Xingfeng was only slightly older than him, he wouldn't have accepted it. But Lei Xingfeng was much younger than him, a full 8 years difference. He didn't dare to imagine what heights Lei Xingfeng would reach in another 8 years. The two of them couldn't be compared at all. Thus, Arctic Harrier was very polite to Lei Xingfeng. He politely led Lei Xingfeng to the front yard of the manor. The entire manor was very large. There was a large lawn that covered an area of more than 1,000 square meters, and it was filled with people. Lei Xingfeng had never seen a big sect recruiting disciples before. He said, "Brother Han, are these the disciples you want to recruit?" The reason why he called him Brother Han was because he was older than him. He wouldn't act like a senior. It was meaningless to him, of course. He also called Arctic Harrier's master, Han Tianchop, Brother Han. Arctic Harrier felt very comfortable in his heart, no matter who it was, no matter which world. No one wouldn't like good words. When Lei Xingfeng called him Brother Han, Arctic Harrier felt very comfortable. He said, Brother Lei, hee, these people aren't confirmed to be recruited into the Taimeng. Most of them will be sent back. Only those with single attributes will be accepted. The rest will depend on luck. The reason why he called him Brother Lei was a form of respect. Even if Lei Xingfeng was younger than him, but calling him Brother Lei meant that he didn't dare to take the lead. Lei Xingfeng nodded, smiled, and said, How many disciples do you recruit every year? Cold Sparrow said, Not many. It depends on the aptitude. I remember that in the most recent year, he took in 600 people. Among them, more than 100 had single attribute aptitude. I don't know why there were so many people with single attribute aptitude that year. In other years, it's hard to say. At the very least, he took in less than 100 people. There were only 7 or 8 people with single attribute aptitude. Lei Xingfeng said, Where is the testing? Arctic Harrier led the other disciples and said, Follow me, please, Brother Lei, follow me, and you will know. Soon, they arrived at the testing hall. There was already a long queue outside, and Arctic Harrier swaggered in. When the cultivators guarding the door saw Arctic Harrier, they all saluted. It was obvious that Arctic Harrier had a very high status among the low-level disciples. There was a row of chairs in the hall, and there were a few people sitting there. They were all Taimeng's real people that Lei Xingfeng had seen before. When they saw Lei Xingfeng enter, they all stood up and greeted him. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, I'm just curious, don't mind me, you guys go ahead. A disciple brought a chair over and invited Lei Xingfeng to sit down. The testing was very simple. There was a star python drum and a jade-colored pillar. The testing disciple just had to place his hand on the jade-colored pillar, and he would get an evaluation. If he hit the star python drum with his palm, he would get an evaluation of his potential. It was very accurate. The jade-colored pillar was used to test one's attributes. If he put his hand on it, he would get 1 color for a single attribute, 2 colors for a double attribute, and 3 colors for a triple attribute. It was very clear that he couldn't cheat. Generally speaking, those with 3 colors were on the verge of being eliminated. As for those with 4 colors and 4 attributes, they would be sent home. Lei Xingfeng happened to see a person with 2 colors. The young man's face was filled with ecstasy. The Taimeng disciple beside the jade-colored pillar said, Go to the star python drum and hit it with all your might. The young man agreed. He went to the star python drum and hit it with all his might. The star python drum was about 1 meter in diameter and hung on a steel frame. Its shape didn't look like a drum, but more like a gong. It was made of star python drum skin, and the surface of the drum was black. There wasn't anything special about it. This was a treasure that every large sect had. Generally speaking, the bigger the star python drum, the more accurate the test would be. The young man hit the surface of the drum with his fist. A low, rumbling sound was heard. This was also the first time Lei Xingfeng saw the star python drum being tested. Therefore, he focused on the surface of the drum. He saw the young man hit the drum with his fist, and a ripple appeared on the surface of the drum. Following that, another ripple appeared, and the last ripple was almost invisible. A Taimeng disciple beside him said, 2 ripples of strength, your aptitude is above average. The young man's face instantly turned pale. Following that, the Taimeng disciple said, Go and report to the outer sect. You're quite lucky. There's been a shortage of people recently. With your aptitude, it'll be difficult for you to enter the outer sect. Arctic Harrier also sat beside Lei Xingfeng. He smiled and said, Brother Lei, have you been tested before? Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, This is the first time I've seen the star python drum. I've never seen it before. Han Yen said, This stage is the most deadly. Those with only one element will be tested and have poor aptitude and can only enter the outer sect. Some with two elements will have good aptitude and can enter the inner sect directly and can even become a personal disciple. We here call the star python drum the deadly drum. Lei Xingfeng asked, "What's above average aptitude?" Arctic Harrier said, "9 ripples, definitely above average aptitude." Another young man stepped forward and punched the star python drum. Ripples appeared one after another. A total of 4 ripples appeared, but the last ripple was already very weak. The Tai Meng disciple beside him said, "Below average aptitude, single attribute can enter the inner sect." Immediately, the young man was so emotional that he shed tears. Entering the inner sect meant that he had entered a world of cultivation. His life would be completely changed. One by one, the young men went through the test. Lei Xingfeng realized that until now, no one had been able to hit 9 ripples, which meant that their aptitude was above average. He said, "Brother Han, more than 10 people have already gone through. Why hasn't anyone reached the top?" Arctic Harrier was speechless. After a while, he smiled bitterly and said, "Let's not talk about more than 10 people. If there is even one above average aptitude in this round of recruitment, you will realize that the whole Tai Meng will be shaken. At that time, there will be countless old guys coming to snatch disciples." Lei Xingfeng said, "So few?" Arctic Harrier said, "Not to mention above average aptitude. Even if it's above average or below average aptitude, there will be countless people fighting over it. As long as it's above average aptitude, it's a good aptitude. If it's a single attribute, it's even more impressive. 3 attributes. Yes, go to the star python drum and hit it with all your might." A young girl asked timidly, "Brother, do I pass?" "Not yet. You have to go to the star python drum to confirm your aptitude. If it's good, there's still hope." This was an extremely skinny young girl. She looked like she was only 11 or 12 years old. One look, and you could tell that she was malnourished. Lei Xingfeng asked softly, "How old do you need to be able to come here to take the test?" Arctic Harrier said, "At least 14 years old, usually 15 years old. 16 years old is a little late. This is because before you officially start cultivating, you need a certain amount of training. Otherwise, your body won't be able to take it. Brother Lei should understand this." Chapter 114. 1 to 2 years should be enough. Lei Xingfeng nodded. He knew that the girl in front of him should be 14 years old. The girl walked to the front of the star python drum. She looked at her fist, then looked at the star python drum. She mustered up her courage and hit the drum. Actually, the number of ripples that appeared had nothing to do with the strength used. It was related to one's aptitude. The star python drum's specialty was that as long as you used a little strength, it would reflect your potential and aptitude. It was a very strange characteristic. One ripple, another ripple. 6 ripples appeared consecutively. The last ripple was almost invisible. The Tai Meng disciple was shocked. He said, "Aptitude, above average." There was an uproar. This was the first disciple with an above-average aptitude. After the uproar, there were sighs. 3 attributes. Even if she had an above-average aptitude, it would be very troublesome to cultivate. The Tai Meng disciple kept shaking his head. 3 attributes. This was too much. If she had 2 attributes, even if she couldn't become a personal disciple, she would at least be an inner disciple. But 3 attributes were more troublesome. He hesitated and didn't classify the girl as an outer disciple. Instead, he said, 3 attributes, above average aptitude, pending. Arctic Harrier also said, "It's a pity. Sigh, this girl is at a disadvantage. How can she have 3 attributes? Such a pity, above average aptitude." Lei Xingfeng smiled. Above average aptitude is already good enough. He knew that just 1 attribute was far from enough. If her aptitude wasn't good enough, her cultivation would be slow. He said, "Give me a copy of the girl's information." Arctic Harrier nodded. "No problem. Brother Lei, what are you doing?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Yes, I might take some people back. It depends on fate." Arctic Harrier was puzzled. He could not understand how Lei Xingfeng could accept a disciple that Tai Meng wanted. At his level, he did not have access to the decisions of the Tai Meng higher-ups. However, this was not his main concern. He immediately waved his hand and called for a Tai Meng disciple to retrieve the information on the young lady. At this moment, Lei Xingfeng saw the head of Tai Meng walking over with Xian Zhaoluan and Ferran. Behind them were a group of Tai Meng higher-ups. Everyone in the hall stood up and went out to welcome them. Lei Xingfeng also followed them to the entrance of the hall. Xian Zhaoluan smiled and said, "A phone. Have you seen anyone with good aptitude?" Lei Xingfeng said, "One of them is all right. It's a pity that her attributes are not good enough. She has 3 attributes, but her aptitude is above average." Xian Zhaoluan said, 3 attributes, a little lacking. She has 2 attributes, and her potential is above average. That's more like it. Let's forget about the rest. It's too difficult to nurture her, and it will consume a lot of resources. Lei Xingfeng did not have any experience in nurturing people. He said, "Let's wait and see. I don't know much about it either." Everyone entered the testing hall. Some Tai Meng disciples brought chairs over and sat down. At this moment, no matter if it was the people who came to take the test or the Tai Meng disciples in the hall, all of them were unusually nervous. A perfected person said loudly, "Don't be nervous. Did you see that? The head of the sect and the elder are here. If your aptitude is good, you guys will benefit. You might even be taken in as a disciple on the spot." Instantly, there was a flurry of discussion from the hall to the outside. The people who were waiting to take the test in the field were excited. What a joke! The head of the Tai Meng and the elder were usually nowhere to be seen. But this time, they actually came to the testing hall. They were supposed to wait until the end of the test before gathering those with good aptitudes and potential to make a decision. But now, if they passed the test, they would be taken in as a disciple immediately. One by one, the young boys and girls walked into the hall. Everyone had a nervous expression on their faces. Even though there were Tai Meng disciples comforting them, it was of little use. No one could relax. This was a moment that could change one's fate. It was equivalent to a new start in life. Once one was taken in as a disciple, no matter who it was, their life would change drastically. Not only would their lives change, but their families would also change greatly. Lei Xingfeng knew that in this type of test, hard work would not guarantee a good result. Regardless of whether one worked hard or not, one's potential and aptitude had already determined one's fate. When a muscular young man walked in, these perfected persons could already tell what his aptitude and potential was just by relying on their outstanding eyesight. However, this was not accurate. If he went through the test, it would be completely different. The test would be able to detect even the slightest change. Therefore, when the young man walked in, almost all the perfected persons straightened their bodies. They could tell that this child's potential and aptitude were not bad. As expected, the Tai Meng disciple who was taking the test shouted, single attribute, fire." Immediately after, the young man punched the star python drum. Ripples appeared on the drum. The Tai Meng disciple said loudly, "Above average aptitude." He shook his head and said softly, "What a pity." Lei Xingfeng nodded silently. It was indeed a pity. If his aptitude was below average, everyone here would have started fighting for him. However, this aptitude was already not bad. The Tai Meng disciple said, "Entering the inner sect is pending." The so-called pending was to see if an expert would take him in as a personal disciple. This treatment was higher than that of an inner sect disciple. The conditions were also much better. With an expert backing him, his status in the Tai Meng was completely different. The young man's face was filled with excitement. He stomped his foot and waved his fist. Before he left, he did not forget to bow to the expert sitting on the chair, leaving a good impression on everyone. At this moment, a young girl walked in. She looked petite and dainty, and her face was filled with confidence. Lei Xingfeng suddenly stood up and stared at her. Xian Zhaoluan said, "Afong, what's the matter?" Ferran also asked curiously. "An acquaintance." Lei Xingfeng walked directly to the young girl and asked, "What's your name?" The young girl suddenly became nervous. She took a step back and said, Who are you?" A Tai Meng disciple beside her scolded softly, "Don't talk nonsense. Senior asked you a question, so just answer." The young girl was shocked. She did not expect someone who was about the same age as her to be addressed as a senior. She did not dare to be rude and said, Disciple's name is Han Jiao." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Let's test it first." Han Jiao did not understand, but she still placed her palm on the jade-colored pillar. Suddenly, a silver light flashed. The Tai Meng disciple said in surprise, "Lightning attribute, single lightning attribute. How rare." Everyone immediately understood why Lei Xingfeng stood up. Everyone could sense that Lei Xingfeng also had a single lightning attribute. Lei Xingfeng said, "Punch the star python drum. Don't use too much strength, just hit the center." Han Jiao waved her small fist and hit the center of the star python drum. Circles of ripples appeared. Lei Xingfeng stared at it and secretly counted the number of circles. There were actually 8 circles. He suddenly smiled and said, "This child, I'll take her." Everyone in the hall was stunned. Even if you want to snatch someone, you shouldn't snatch her so openly. This made the people of Tai Meng very embarrassed. It was supposed to be a private transaction, but Lei Xingfeng did not understand. He only knew that this girl had the same attributes as him, and her potential was relatively good. No matter which sect she was in, she would be a hot commodity. Lei Xingfeng did not care about this. Since he had decided he would not let go, he said, Han Jiao, follow me. Han Jiao did not understand at all. Therefore, she had already decided that Lei Xingfeng was a senior expert. She did not have any objections and happily followed Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng came in front of Han Tianchop. Because he was the leader of Taimeng, he said, Brother Han, I'm sorry, but I'll take this girl. Ferran interrupted. Only this once. Don't do it again. Han Tianchop hesitated for a while, then nodded and said, All right, Brother A Feng, you're making things difficult for me. Ha, but we'll talk about it later. It's not a big problem for you to take her in, but brother, you're too impatient. Xian Zhaoluan did not speak until the two most important people of Taimeng spoke. He then said, I'm sorry for making things difficult for the two of you. Don't worry, I won't let Taimeng suffer. With his words, Han Tianchop and Ferran heaved a sigh of relief. They would not offend a super expert like Xian Zhaoluan for a disciple with good potential. Lei Xingfeng sat down and instructed a Taimeng disciple to lead Han Jiao out and arrange her accommodation. Han Jiao was considered his subordinate, so she was no longer part of Taimeng. He could only treat her as a guest. Countless people looked on enviously as Han Jiao went out. Being taken in by an expert was the best outcome. Han Jiao did not come alone. She had a whole family with her. Not only were her parents here, but there was also a large group of siblings. When Han Jiao went out, they immediately gathered around her. Lei Xingfeng knew that he was being a little reckless, but with his senior brother around, he did not mind. After all, he had already taken her in. He did not plan to take in many people. He planned to take in a few to test it out. If the results were good, he would take in more people in the future. If the results were not good, taking in a few people would not affect anything. He did not lack money to support people anyway. The tests continued. This time, the people who came to take the tests seemed to have good potential and aptitude. Soon, he found many of them were above average or below average. Whether it was Han Tianchop or Ferran, they both relaxed. This was because the Taimeng did not care about how many people they took in this test. What they cared about was how many talented people there were. This time, they had already discussed among themselves and decided to let Xian Zhaoluan and the others choose. This was because Xian Zhaoluan said that if he was satisfied, he would use Luan rings or Luan rings to exchange. If there was a genius child, then whether it was in terms of attributes or aptitude, he would directly use rings to exchange. Han Tianchop was very much in need of rings. If he had enough, he could quickly condense his 7th true ring body and become a mad true ring master. At that time, his position would be even more stable. But rings were too hard to come by. They were not something that a true Ashen Seal master with a 9th true ring body could make. Only a true monarch or above could make them. And where could he find a true monarch or above? Arctic Harrier laughed. Brother Lei, since you haven't taken the test before, why don't you go up and try? Chapter 115. Ferran was also curious. He asked, A Xingfeng has never been tested before. Lei Xingfeng laughed. No, I've never been tested before. I don't know what my potential is like. Hee. Xian Zhaoluan was actually very curious because his master hadn't taken in a disciple for a long time. And now that he suddenly took in a disciple, if there was nothing that moved him, he believed that he wouldn't take Xian Feng back. Let's try. I'm also very curious. Han Tianchop said, Yeah, I'm curious too. Let's try. In fact, Lei Xingfeng was also very curious. When he came in, he wanted to hit the star python drum. However, he was a distinguished guest and couldn't be so rude. Hearing that everyone was curious, he didn't decline. He stood up and said, "Okay, I'll try." Suddenly, the testing hall was silent. Everyone stared at Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng knew that this test couldn't use Lunli or Luaninli. It also didn't require a lot of strength. Therefore, he went to the star python drum, aimed at the center of the star python drum, and lightly hit it. Hearing the sound of the drum, countless feather-like waves shot out, forming the shape of a flower. Wave after wave, the Tai Meng disciple in charge of the test opened his mouth wide. He couldn't close it no matter how hard he tried. He was still unconsciously counting the number of rounds. 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 9 rounds, 10 rounds, 18 rounds. Xian Zhaoluan's eyes lit up. He didn't expect Lei Xingfeng to hit the feather wheel, and a total of 21 waves. He couldn't believe his eyes. When he took the test, although he also used the feather wheel, he only hit 7 waves. He was already considered a genius among geniuses. Many people didn't know what the white feather wheel was, but everyone knew that Lei Xingfeng was definitely not an ordinary person. In this group, there were only a few people who understood, including the Tai Meng disciple, because he was in charge of testing. Although he was only a mill wheel master, his knowledge of testing was better than many real people. He also knew about the feather wheel. It was an extreme reaction of the star python drum. In the whole Tai Meng, no one could hit a wave of the feather wheel. If one could hit a wave of the feather wheel, then that person's aptitude and potential would be superior. 21 waves. Afon, that's too much. You can actually make 21 waves. Too bad. This star python drum isn't good enough. It's too small. If it were a real drum, I think you could make it into a different shape. Forget it. I really admire Master's eyes. When I made 7 waves, it was already amazing. Compared to you, I'm nothing. His voice was very soft. Lei Xingfeng sat down and said, "I don't even know what that is. What is a feather wheel?" Xian Zhaoluan said, "Wave wheel is the first form. It can test the aptitude of the majority of people. The second is the feather wheel. Unfortunately, this star python drum can only test the second form. Your potential and aptitude has already surpassed the second form. If there is a large star python drum with a diameter of 3 meters, then it can test the third form. The third form is the aptitude and potential of a true peerless genius." I think you are that kind of person. Lei Xingfeng didn't mind. He was already a genius and rarely met with any trouble in his cultivation. His path to the level of a true Luan-Yin master was very smooth. He wasn't like other practitioners who were busy to the point of death and only managed to advance once. He said, "At least I got tested once. It can be considered as satisfying my curiosity." After a moment of chatter, the test continued. Very quickly, it was time to eat, and the test was temporarily stopped. Under Hantian Chop's invitation, Xian Zhaoluan and Lei Xingfeng came together to a small courtyard. This was the small building where Hantian Chop lived. After the meal, a portion of the higher-ups went out again. They still had to preside over the test. As for the others, they stayed in the small building. Lei Xingfeng said, "Brother Han, help me find someone. Find the little girl I took in this morning. I have some questions that I want to ask her." Arctic Harrier nodded and immediately ordered Tai Meng's disciples to do it. After a moment, Han Jiao was brought over. Along with her was a large group of people, all of whom were her family members. Lei Xingfeng didn't expect such a large group of people to come. Fortunately, he was experienced and knowledgeable. He stood up and walked in front of this group of people. Of course, Tiger Love and Mad Eagle also followed. Arctic Harrier laughed. "Everyone is here. Brother Lei, you didn't really take her in as your disciple, right?" You're only 17 years old, taking in a 15-year-old girl as your disciple." He had a look of suspicion on his face. Lei Xingfeng raised his leg and kicked at the speed of lightning. Even if Arctic Harrier wanted to dodge, it would be difficult. Fortunately, Lei Xingfeng was only joking. He didn't really use any strength. When his leg touched Arctic Harrier's, but he retracted his leg. However, this kick shocked Arctic Harrier. Of course, he knew that Lei Xingfeng was joking. However, this kick was a great threat to him. He could only look on helplessly. It was too scary. Lei Xingfeng walked in front of Han Jiao and asked, "Who are they?" At this moment, his aura was indeed very strong. Behind him were two strong men with extraordinary auras. Beside them were Tai Meng's inner core disciples. He was also dressed very nicely. The Tai Meng disciples around him were also very respectful to him. This gave Han Jiao's family a lot of pressure. Han Jiao was so scared that her face turned pale. She didn't know how to answer. She blinked her eyes, and a tear fell. Arctic Harrier smiled and said, "Brother Lei, you scared her to tears." Lei Xingfeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was silent for a moment. Then he took out a piece of white silk and handed it to her. "Wipe it. Why are you crying?" Han Jiao took the white silk. It wasn't a handkerchief. It was a piece of white silk. The quality was excellent. She didn't understand why she had to use such expensive white silk to wipe her tears. She put the white silk into her clothes and wiped her tears with her sleeve. Arctic Harrier couldn't help but laugh. He said, "That's for you to wipe your tears. It's not for you to put it away." Han Jiao's face turned red. She didn't know where to put her hands and feet. Lei Xingfeng glared at Arctic Harrier. He said gently, "Don't be afraid. Just put it away. It's for you. Who are these people to you?" Han Jiao said, This is my mother. This is my father. This is my brother, my sister, my younger brother, my younger sister." Lei Xingfeng thought, "Wow, such a big family." He nodded and asked, "Have you eaten?" Han Jiao said, "We brought some food, but it's in the car. The car is parked outside the manor. We can't go out yet." Lei Xingfeng nodded. He turned his head and said, "Brother Han, get someone to bring some food. You guys eat first. We'll talk after you're done." Han Jiao's face lit up. In fact, she was already hungry. Her little brothers and sisters were so hungry that they were about to cry. She said softly, "Thank you, Master." Lei Xingfeng hurriedly said, Don't call me Master." This was a big misunderstanding. He didn't want to take in disciples. He only wanted to take in subordinates. Of course, the treatment of these subordinates would definitely be better than that of Tai Meng's direct disciples. Han Jiao was stunned. She stuttered. Then I... Tears streamed down her face. Lei Xingfeng suddenly felt a headache coming. He wondered if he had made a mistake in taking in people. He hurriedly said, "Don't cry. Let's finish eating first. I'll talk to you guys later, okay?" Han Jiao's parents were adults after all. They hurriedly pulled Han Jiao to the side. Lei Xingfeng turned back. He sighed and said, "Uncle Tiger, Uncle Ling, should I find something to do?" Tiger Love was a man of few words. Mad Eagle laughed and said, "If you think it's too troublesome, then don't take her in. You have nothing to lose." Lei Xingfeng was silent. He thought for a moment and decided to talk first. There were too few thunder cultivators. Up until now, he had only seen this little girl with this talent. Most importantly, her talent was not bad. Xian Jialuan said, "How did it go?" Lei Xingfeng laughed bitterly and said, "She thought she was going to take me in as a disciple. In the end, ha!" Xian Jialuan nodded and said, "She can't take you in as a disciple. Even I haven't taken in any disciples. We're not at the level yet. Arctic Harrier was shocked. A ninth ring sage wasn't even qualified to take in a disciple. Where did such a monster come from? Han Jiao's family didn't have any right to choose. Once Lei Xingfeng decided to take her in, they couldn't object. Tai Meng definitely wouldn't offend Lei Xingfeng and the others for a little girl. This kind of thing would be the same in any sect. Han Jiao's family ate a sumptuous meal with Tai Meng's disciples leading them. Han Jiao's family decided that no matter what, they would do whatever Lei Xingfeng said. They couldn't object to anything, so they gradually calmed down. Han Jiao especially understood that her fate was no longer up to her. After the family finished eating, they came in front of Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Have you thought about it? Do you want to come with me or stay?" After thinking for a while, he still gave them the right to choose. He knew in his heart that a forced melon wouldn't be sweet. This time, Han Jiao's answer was very straightforward. She said, "We will go with you." "We?" Lei Xingfeng was stunned. He suddenly understood that everyone wanted to follow him. However, he didn't mind because there was a place for them to stay. He nodded and said, "Very good. Uncle Tiger, go and arrange for them to stay. When we leave, we'll take them with us." He asked Arctic Harrier for a bag of gold rings and handed it to Han Jiao's parents. He said, "Take this money first. We'll talk about it when we arrive at our place." Han Jiao's parents took the leather bag. When they realized that it was a bag of gold rings, both of them heaved a sigh of relief. A bag of gold rings was enough to make them feel at ease. It seemed that Han Jiao's luck was very good. She had found a rich person. They didn't understand that following Lei Xingfeng wasn't just about money. There were also countless potential benefits. Tiger Love agreed and asked the Tai Meng disciples to arrange the accommodations. In the afternoon, a batch of disciples with good qualifications was sent over. This time, Xian Zhaoluan was the one who picked them. Lei Xingfeng thought for a while and decided to take in another 3 people. He would take in a total of 4 people. He arranged for them to be tested first. If there were too many people, he wouldn't have the energy to take care of them. Chapter 116. Xian Zhaoluan picked 10 people in one go. Lei Xingfeng also picked 3 people, 1 girl and 2 boys. Including Han Jiao, there were 2 boys, 2 girls, and 4 family members. According to Tai Meng's rules, anyone who was accepted as a disciple could bring their family members to live in the city. Therefore, all those who came to take the test came as a family. Once they were accepted by Tai Meng, they would have the right to live in the city. Lei Xingfeng couldn't arrange for the 4 family members to live in the city. He had to bring the child's family members. Although it was troublesome, it was necessary. With a family, the child would be at ease and wouldn't have any rebellious thoughts. Xian Zhaoluan's guards had already returned. Their task was to arrange for these newly accepted people. At this time, Qi Meiyun and Yi Niao returned. After exchanging a few words, they asked the Tai Meng disciples to arrange rooms for them to rest. Lei Xingfeng asked, Senior brother, where did senior sister go? Xian Zhaoluan laughed. Don't worry about them. As long as they don't fight, anything is fine. Lei Xingfeng lived very comfortably and relaxed in Taimeng. Xian Zhaoluan sent the people he accepted back. The two of them were purely having fun in Taimeng. Of course, Lei Xingfeng still hid in his room to cultivate. He was just a step away from condensing his fourth true ring body. However, this step made Lei Xingfeng feel helpless. There was no thunderstorm here. He finally understood that no matter how good his potential was, without the help of the thunderstorm, his cultivation speed would still be very slow. In fact, his cultivation speed was already very fast. However, after enjoying rapid advancement, he was extremely disappointed with this slow cultivation speed. After cultivating continuously for a few days, Lei Xingfeng decided to stop cultivating. He spent a lot of time reading the star python records. He lacked too much knowledge. Even though he had a lot of records, he still needed a lot of time to slowly digest them. The 4 subordinates he accepted this time were Luan rings paid by Xian Zhaoluan. After they were sent back, someone would be responsible for training them. However, he had to pay a certain amount of Luan rings and also pay for their resources. After a long time, he would naturally form a small faction in his family. After a few exchanges with Xian Zhaoluan, Lei Xingfeng gradually understood the survival rules of a hidden family. Whether it was Luan rings, Yin rings, or resources like these, they weren't free. They had to be fed back to the family after he grew up. Only now did Lei Xingfeng understand that the people who were fighting with his grandfather Thunderstorm should be from a similar hidden family. No wonder they were so strong. Thinking of the old man Thunderstorm, Lei Xingfeng's heart flashed with a trace of anxiety. He didn't know where the old man went, nor did he know how to find him. However, he had already decided to expand his influence and increase his strength. This was the key. With his current strength, even if he brought along Mad Eagle and Tiger Love, he definitely wouldn't be a match for some of the hidden families. Master, mistress, and founder treated Lei Xingfeng extremely well. From the beginning, they gave him a large number of subordinates. Fortunately, this time, Lei Xingfeng began to understand the key to a hidden family's survival. If he raised these subordinates for nothing, he definitely wouldn't be able to bear it. The family gave him help from the beginning so that he could grow faster. Xian Zhaoluan, Qi Meiyun, and Yin Yao were also speechless at the treatment Lei Xingfeng received. It wasn't that they didn't have any opinions about their master's favoritism. Fortunately, Lei Xingfeng wasn't arrogant at all and treated people very sincerely. In fact, as long as you didn't anger him, Lei Xingfeng's personality and temper were similar to his previous life. It was a peaceful era, and people didn't rely on killing to survive. Under such circumstances, it was hard to have a bad personality and temper. However, once Lei Xingfeng was angered, the disadvantages of cultivating the lightning element would be exposed. That kind of destructive and violent energy would involuntarily appear. Even Lei Xingfeng would find it difficult to control it. Lei Xingfeng had been secretly calculating. In this life, he didn't learn any organization or management, but he had similar experiences in his previous life. Moreover, in his previous life, he experienced the so-called knowledge explosion. Even if he hadn't eaten pork, he had seen pigs run. Therefore, it wasn't difficult for him. He needed an organization structure, which wasn't difficult for him. Very quickly, he constructed a pyramid-like organization structure. Only with this kind of structure could Lei Xingfeng be the controller at the top of the pyramid. He could use the lower levels to control more people and things. Of course, this organization structure had a huge weakness. Once he was done for, the organization would also be done for. By now, Lei Xingfeng had vaguely guessed that the so-called hidden family was to obtain all kinds of resources and gather all kinds of power to strengthen themselves. The only thing that Lei Xingfeng didn't understand was that these people had already reached an extremely high level. Why did they still rely on this hidden family to increase their strength? Could it be that there was still a threat? After living in Taimeng for more than a month, Xi and Zhaoluan brought Lei Xingfeng back. As for Qi Meiyun and Yin Yao, they had already left a few days ago. During this time, Lei Xingfeng had also exchanged for some resources. However, he didn't have any Luan rings, only a few gold rings. He had to borrow some Luan rings from Xi and Zhaoluan to gather some resources, mainly food and clothing. For the time being, Lei Xingfeng couldn't purchase a large amount. After all, he hadn't been in the family for long and didn't understand many things. After passing through the ancient Luan passage, Xi and Zhaoluan brought everyone back to the family. This time, Lei Xingfeng learned how to use the Luan points and ancient Luan passage. As long as he reached the fourth true ring body, he would be able to use them. Xi and Zhaoluan also gave him a Luan point distribution map, recorded on the star python skin. In this era, apart from a few true masters with 4 true ring bodies who could use Luan points, the others couldn't travel very far. A journey of tens of thousands of li wasn't something that humans could overcome. Not to mention, there were all kinds of dangers along the way. Therefore, many ordinary people wouldn't be able to travel more than 100 li in their lifetime. This was also because true masters were the rulers of this world. They could bring large amounts of resources and carry out long-distance transactions. As for the so-called gold, silver, and copper rings, they were also created by these true masters and became the currency of the entire continent. Therefore, there were still certain differences between the coins of various regions. Some even had some special marks and symbols. After returning to the family seclusion, Lei Xingfeng found a channel and asked about the income from the family. In the end, he found that the family was very generous and gave him a lot of resources. In fact, Lei Xingfeng wasn't clear about his position. He was Guqi's 9th direct disciple and was the master of the family. He wasn't a subordinate, nor was he a vassal. Naturally, he received the largest amount of resources. There were 10 yin rings every time. Just this alone was very frightening, but it wasn't very useful for Lei Xingfeng's cultivation. Guqi had specifically warned Lei Xingfeng not to use yin rings to cultivate. If he encountered a battle and used up most of his Luan yin li, he could use Luan yin rings to replenish it. Once he became a true yin master or a true ring body, if he used up most of his Luan yin li, he could use yin rings to replenish it. However, it was too wasteful to use 1 yin ring to replenish his Luan yin li. A true yin master couldn't make yin rings. Only a true ashen seal master with 9 true ring bodies could condense Luan seals during cultivation. In fact, this was an unexpected product of cultivation. When yin li rotated, it would slowly condense the excess energy in the body in the form of Luan rings. During cultivation, hundreds of Luan rings would appear. As one's cultivation deepened, a few Luan yin rings would appear. Of course, yin rings wouldn't appear. Only those with a higher cultivation level could condense them. Lei Xingfeng didn't go out anymore. Instead, he hid in the family's seclusion grounds and began to bitterly cultivate. The 4 boys and girls he brought back were also handed over to the family. There was a specialized place for them to study, and there were specialized teachers there. However, Lei Xingfeng had to pay some Luan rings and resources. The resources given to Lei Xingfeng were enough for him to use. Of course, these resources weren't given for free. After he matured, he would have to contribute to the family. This wasn't something he needed to worry about. At least 10 years later, he wouldn't ask for anything. Lei Xingfeng benefited greatly from the fact that he was already a true ring-body Luanine master when he entered the family. 10 years later, he would definitely have the strength to contribute to the family. He wasn't against this point. No effort, no gain, no gain. This was the same everywhere. Moreover, the family had given a large amount of resources at the beginning. For Lei Xingfeng, the benefits were self-evident. Half a year later, Lei Xingfeng smoothly advanced to a great, true Luanine master. In other words, he had condensed 4 true ring bodies. At this time, he completely understood that if he relied on himself to cultivate, his cultivation speed would only be slightly faster than geniuses. But if he cultivated in the thunderstorm, it would be completely different. He could advance at a crazy speed. Therefore, he couldn't hide in the family and cultivate. He had to go out and find a suitable place to cultivate. Actually, One Sea Continent was very good. Moreover, he still owed them a small boat. This was something that Lei Xingfeng placed great importance on. He couldn't go back on his words. Previously, Uncle Zhou and Zhou Xin had saved his life. No matter what kind of opportunity he had to go back and find a suitable thunderstorm area to continue his cultivation. Since Lei Xingfeng had already advanced to a great true Luanine master, he could now open the Luan Point and use the ancient Luan Passage. This world was now open to him. When a true master could use the ancient Luan Passage, the region wouldn't be an obstacle that limited him. Through Qi Meiyun, Lei Xingfeng found the Luan Point that he used to leave One Sea Continent. As long as he used the ancient Luan Passage, he would be able to return to that point and find his way back. This time, Lei Xingfeng didn't plan to bring anyone with him. Whether it was Tiger Love or Mad Eagle, these guards all needed to cultivate. He didn't plan to disturb them. It would be more convenient for him to leave alone. After saying goodbye to his master Gucci and his senior brothers and sisters, Lei Xingfeng left the clan. He opened the Luan Point alone and used the ancient Luan Passage to One Sea Continent. This time, Lei Xingfeng made a lot of preparations before leaving the clan. In half a year, he made his own weapon, a lightning spear. At the same time, he remade his black bow and made a batch of lightning arrows. The main use of the lightning arrows was to add his lightning attribute, Luan in energy. The black bow's use was completely different. It was originally an ordinary long-range weapon. Even if the black bow had a strong attack power, it was nothing compared to the lightning arrows. Chapter 117. The lightning spear was made from the lightning attributed bone, which cost Xian Feng quite a bit of ingredients, all of which were obtained from his family. He had even asked his master to help him melt the bone, obtaining a 2-chi-long spearhead, 108 arrowheads, as well as other materials. A lightning spear and 108 arrowheads were made. Actually, even without the lightning spear and arrows, Lei Xingfeng could still use some methods, such as condensing lightning and thunder out of thin air. However, this kind of attack would consume a lot of Luan Yin Li. Using the lightning spear and arrows to create the lightning spear and arrows didn't have this problem. Also, before Lei Xingfeng left, he took a lot of the things he obtained from the ancient hidden Luan. Some of the unimportant things were placed in his residence, freeing up a lot of hidden Luan space. With his appetite without a lot of food, he wouldn't be able to feel at ease even if he cultivated. The lake that was affected by the battle between Qi Meiyun and Yin Yao had already calmed down. Lei Xingfeng found a half-sunken boat by the reed marshes and dragged it to the reed marshes. After checking, the boat wasn't damaged, only overturned by the current. After scooping the water out of the boat, Lei Xingfeng obtained a means of transportation. Without a boat, it was really hard to move around. Previously, he still had a steel paddle in his hidden Luan space, so he also had a paddle. Following the reed marshes, Lei Xingfeng paddled the boat all the way down. The rainy season was about to end. For 2 consecutive days, the thunderstorm that Lei Xingfeng hoped for didn't come. Instead, the sky was clear and the weather was hot and dry. Lei Xingfeng's attire was no different from the local fishermen, just a pair of calf pants and a bare upper body. Lei Xingfeng, who was almost 18 years old, had a rather strong physique. Just this body made Lei Xingfeng very satisfied. In his previous life, he didn't have such a good physique, nor was he so tall. In this life, his height was almost 190 centimeters. Moreover, Lei Xingfeng was very satisfied with his appearance. Although he wasn't beautiful, he was full of vigor. Especially after he had gotten rid of his naivety, he had a valiant aura. While paddling, Lei Xingfeng tried to remember the direction he came from. In the lake, it was impossible to remember the way because with the flow of the water, there was no good reference on the surface of the lake. He had to follow the directions. As long as the direction was right, he would be able to roughly find the starting point. Lei Xingfeng wasn't in a hurry. He slowly rowed the boat, and the boat slowly glided on the lake. Time wasn't tight, and he didn't have the consciousness of being in a rush. Along the way, he constantly stopped to rest. While resting, he continued to study the star python record. Sometimes, he would even set down the bait and catch some fresh fish to eat. Just like that, day after day passed. Until now, he still hadn't seen a single fishing boat. It was as if he was the only boat in this world, and he was all alone in this world. The sky suddenly darkened, and Lei Xingfeng immediately became excited. There were faint sounds of thunder in the sky, and it was about to rain. Lei Xingfeng used all his strength to paddle towards the dense, dark clouds. Soon, Lei Xingfeng bitterly smiled as he looked at the sky. The rolling dark clouds calmed down, and the sky became slightly brighter. A light rain fell. Lei Xingfeng cursed in his heart. He knew that even if it rained, it wouldn't be heavy, and there definitely wouldn't be a thunderstorm. He sat down again, put away the paddle, and stared blankly at the sky. Thunderstorm was getting harder and harder to find. Once the rainy season was over, there was almost no rain in the Wanxi continent. Thunderstorm was even rarer. Lei Xingfeng had a headache. He never thought that he would need to chase after a thunderstorm. Unfortunately, even though there was no shortage of thunderstorms at this time, and there were even thunderstorms and snow, it was too difficult to coincide. There was no weather forecast here, and there was no rainstorm distribution map for him to use. And thunderstorm and the like would dissipate in a few hours. It wasn't something that could happen just because he wanted to. This boat was very simple. In fact, there was only the hull left. Everything else had disappeared. If it wasn't for the fact that there was still a paddle in Lei Xingfeng's hidden Luin space, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't have been able to use this boat. Lei Xingfeng lay in the middle of the boat, facing the sky, and let the light rain fall on his face. This light rain made him think a lot. He knew that he had to find a place to train, and he had to record where thunderstorm gathered. Then, when the time and place were right, he would rush over to train. This kind of random searching was like trying his luck. He estimated that he would only find it once in 10 times, and that would be considered lucky. After the light rain passed, Lei Xingfeng also recovered. The light rain just now had given him quite a blow. He pulled himself together and continued to paddle forward. After a full 10 days, Lei Xingfeng finally saw a small boat. It was a small fishing boat, slightly bigger than Lei Xingfeng's current boat. He immediately paddled over. With Lei Xingfeng paddling with all his strength, the boat's speed was terrifying. A trail of white foam appeared at the stern of the boat. The boat seemed to be flying on water, and in 10 minutes, it caught up to the boat in the distance. The people on the boat also saw Lei Xingfeng. They originally wanted to avoid him, but when they saw the speed of Lei Xingfeng's boat, they knew that there was no way to avoid him. That speed wasn't something a normal boat could have. It was too fast, like an arrow shooting over. Knowing that it wasn't a normal boat, there was no use in dodging. The boat was too fast. Even if it caught up to the boat, it still circled around the boat a few times before stabilizing. Zhang Laoda, how come it's you? Zhang Laoda was also dumbfounded. He also didn't expect it to be Lei Xingfeng. He said, "Oh, it's you, little brother. How come you didn't go back for the whole rainy season? Boss Shou has been waiting for you." Lei Xingfeng asked, "How is he? And little Xian, is she okay?" Zhang Laoda smiled and said, "Good, very good. Your boat." At this time, he noticed that this broken boat was probably only usable by Lei Xingfeng. There was nothing inside, just a floating hull. There wasn't even a deck. It was just a bare boat, as if it had been ransacked. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, "There was a fight, and it affected me, so—" He couldn't explain it in detail, and it was meaningless to explain it to an ordinary person. He said, "Zhang Laoda, can you take me back to the market?" "Ha, I'm lost." Zhang Laoda's mouth was wide open. After a while, he said, "Oh, my God, there was a fight, and your boat. You're lost. All right, come here. Tie your boat to mine, and I'll take you back." Lei Xingfeng had worked hard for dozens of days, and he could finally rest. He tied the boat to Zhang Laoda's boat, and then he boarded Zhang Laoda's boat. He said, "How far is the market from here?" Zhang Laoda smiled bitterly and said, "Half a day. If we hurry up, we might not even need half a day." "Ah, right. How come your boat was so fast?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and took out a steel paddle. Suddenly, the boat sank a bit. He said, "I'll use this paddle." Zhang Laoda knew that this was a steel paddle at a glance. He couldn't help but click his tongue and said, "Good guy." He already knew that Lei Xingfeng was a cultivator, so he was surprised by the steel paddle that appeared out of nowhere. He nodded and said, "I can't move the steel paddle. It's too heavy." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "I'll move the paddle, and you'll point the way." Zhang Laoda knew that Lei Xingfeng felt that his speed was too slow, and he also wanted to save some energy. He smiled and said, "Okay, but you'll have to use your paddle. My paddle won't be able to withstand your strength." He pulled his own paddle and placed it on the rocking frame at the side of the boat. He helped Lei Xingfeng set up the steel paddle and said with a smile, "Okay, you can do it." In fact, he was also curious as to why Lei Xingfeng used such a heavy paddle. Lei Xingfeng only lightly pulled the paddle, and the boat immediately shot forward as if it was hit by a giant beast. Zhang Laoda was shocked and couldn't help but say, "That's amazing." Paddling was a step forward and a step back. The paddle drew a zigzag shape on the surface of the water, and the boat relied on this to move forward. However, Lei Xingfeng's strength was too great. He only moved forward and backward a few times, and the boat was already flying fast. The difference in strength between a normal person and a cultivator was too great. The two couldn't be compared at all. In less than half an hour, Lei Xingfeng could already see the shadow of the market on the surface of the water. He sighed and said, "It's really difficult to find a fixed place on the surface of the lake. It took me more than half a year to find it." Zhang Laoda said, "That's right. If it wasn't for the old boatman, no one would dare to go too far. We're all around the market, and it's less than 6 or 7 days' journey. If we go too far, we might get lost. There are at least a few boats that go missing every year. Hee, your luck is not bad." There were still many boats docked at the port of the market. It wasn't fishing season yet, so most of the boats were still docked at the market. In another 10 days, there wouldn't be many boats docked here. When the two boats docked at the port, the entire port was in an uproar. Lei Xingfeng was already very famous at the port before the rainy season. After all, such a young cultivator would definitely attract attention. In addition, his relationship with the overlord of the market was also feared. Lei Xingfeng went from being a mill wheel master before he left to being a great mill wheel master after he came back. His personal cultivation had also changed heaven and earth. With his cultivation, he could be called a tyrant in some small and medium-sized sections. When Zhou Tong and Zhou Xian saw Lei Xingfeng, it was as if a lifetime had passed. Then, they looked at Lei Xingfeng's boat. Zhou Tong said, "Did you encounter pirates?" "It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back." Zhou Xian said nervously, "Brother Lei, you're not hurt, right?" Lei Xingfeng rubbed Zhou Xian's head and said with a smile, "I'm fine. It's just that the boat was destroyed, so I found a new one. However, this boat is pretty much useless. Hee hee." Zhou Xian said, "It's fine. As long as brother can come back safely, it's fine." Lei Xingfeng's heart moved slightly. He thought to himself, this little guy is not bad. Before Lei Xingfeng could say anything, someone had already come over. It was Zhonggung's servant. He had been waiting at the port for Lei Xingfeng. When he saw Lei Xingfeng return, he immediately went up to say something. Another servant quickly went back to report. When Lei Xingfeng went to hunt a star lake python together, they ended up attracting a huge one. Zhonggung's team was almost wiped out. From that moment on, Lei Xingfeng became famous among the cultivators in the market. So when Lei Xingfeng returned, it wasn't strange that someone immediately came to greet him. Chapter 118. Moreover, Lei Xingfeng had once given guidance to Zhonggung and Wu Zhen. Because of this, the two of them advanced. This made the local practitioners respect him as if he was a god. Very quickly, someone came to invite Lei Xingfeng over. Lei Xingfeng did not stay at the pier for too long. He still needed to buy another boat from Zhonggung. He had promised to give one to Zhou Xian, so he had to do it no matter what. He got up and followed the servant to Zhonggung's residence. Zhonggung, Wu Zhen, and Han Xiao Bao all came out to welcome them. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Long time no see, hee hee." Zhonggung took a few steps forward and laughed. "Yes, Brother Lei, you've been out for an entire rainy season. Hee hee, I heard that your boat was destroyed. Can you tell us more about it? If you need us, just let us know. Hee hee." This meant that they were going to help. Lei Xingfeng thought, that was because my two senior apprentice sisters were fighting, and it was destroyed. At the same time, tens of thousands of people died. How can I tell you? He laughed. "It's okay. If it's destroyed, it's destroyed. We can just buy a new one." Since Lei Xingfeng did not want to pursue the matter, Zhonggung naturally would not be nosy. He invited Lei Xingfeng to go home. After they sat down, Lei Xingfeng looked at Zhonggung and laughed. "Not bad. You've completely consolidated your cultivation in one rainy season." Zhonggung laughed and said, "Yes, yes. After working hard for an entire rainy season, I didn't go out. Luckily, I caught a star lake python and exchanged it for many useful things. Oh, right, bring a box from my room." Immediately, two servants carried a large wooden box and placed it beside the four of them. When they opened the box, they saw that it was filled with gold and silver rings. Zhonggung said, "This is your share from the last hunt. Because the star lake python's corpse cannot be stored for long, we exchanged it for ring money." Lei Xingfeng did not mind. "Keep a bag of gold rings. As for the rest, I'll exchange it for a small boat. Yes, just the same as last time." Wu Zhen said, "It's not necessary. A small boat does not cost much. At most, it's a few dozen gold rings. It's already the best boat." Gold rings were worth a lot of money. They could be used anywhere. It was the standard currency. So, using gold and silver rings was better than bartering. Lei Xingfeng nodded. That's good. Leave the money for the boat. I'll keep the rest. Zhong Gung heaved a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Lei Xingfeng would not accept it. That would mean that Lei Xingfeng was not satisfied with the distribution. To him, this was a very unfavorable situation. He still needed Lei Xingfeng's guidance to advance. Of course, he did not want to offend a disciple of such a large sect. Until now, he still thought that Lei Xingfeng was a disciple of a large sect who came out to train. Wu Zhen did not dare to delay. He immediately ordered his servants to buy a new boat. Lei Xingfeng kept the excess money. At this moment, a person rushed in and shouted, "Master, master, not good, not good. Someone is killing his way in and wants to take over the market." Lei Xingfeng looked up and smiled. "Isn't that Tian Dabing?" He did not have a good impression of Tian Dabing. He was a nouveau riche who only knew how to bully the weak. Zhong Gung slightly frowned. "Calm down. What do you think you are doing? You are a cultivator, not an ordinary person." Seeing Xian Feng, Tian Dabing's voice became softer. "Master, it's true. It's true that there are people coming outside of the market. There are over 30 boats and 3 large ones. All of them are large sailboats. Their strength shouldn't be weak." Zhong Gung looked at Lei Xingfeng and thought, "Fortunately, Brother Lei is here. We are both mill wheel masters. What is there to be afraid of?" He still did not know that Lei Xingfeng was no longer a mill wheel master. He was now a Taoist master, a Taoist mill wheel master. "What are you panicking for? Let's go take a look." The 4 of them stood up, and Wu Zhen called over many servants and retainers and walked out together. Everyone arrived at the wooden platform outside the market. Not far away, more than 30 boats were lined up. They looked very imposing. Among them, the most conspicuous were the 3 large boats. Zhong Gung sighed and said, "I knew it. It's the people from Tangku Old Town again. After a quiet, rainy season, they're starting to get restless again. Haha, that's good too. Let's take this opportunity to settle things once and for all. Damn it, they're just relying on a Milun master to bully us." Lei Xingfeng asked, "What is Tangku Old Town?" Wu Zhen explained, "We are at Wishiku Old Town. This market is very famous in the vicinity. It is considered a transportation hub. The location of Tangku Old Town is much worse. Therefore, the cultivators of Tangku Old Town have long wanted to occupy this place. But because Master is here, they can't take it by force. I don't know why so many boats came this time. It seems they have bad intentions." Lei Xingfeng asked, "Are there any powerful cultivators?" Wu Zhen said, "Yes, they have a Wanluan Shi." Lei Xingfeng laughed. "But your master is a mill wheel master. What's the use of a Wanluan Shi?" Wu Zhen said, "Yes, but I guess either they have external help, or this guy is like my master and advanced to a mill wheel master." Lei Xingfeng praised, "That's right. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come." "Right, what is that person's name?" Wu Zhen said, "Long Fin. He is also a cultivator without any sect. Like Master, he came here after becoming 1,000 Luan Master. After advancing to Wanluan Shi, he took over Tangku Old Town and established a small family here." Zhong Gung stood on the platform and quietly looked at the 3 ships that were gradually approaching. He saw Longfin standing at the bow with a middle-aged man beside him. Zhong Gung was shocked because this middle-aged man gave him a great sense of threat. He immediately understood that the other party had found powerful reinforcements. Lei Xingfeng said, "That person is Longfin?" Zhong Gung nodded. "That's right. That person is Longfin. As for the middle-aged man beside him, I don't recognize him." Lei Xingfeng said, "Longfin is the same as you, a mill wheel master. the middle-aged man beside him, if I'm not wrong, is a true master. A true master with one true ring body at the mill wheel master. Zhonggung's face couldn't help but reveal a look of despair. He sighed. If it is a true master, then this time, I have no choice but to leave. AI, it wasn't easy for me to familiarize myself with this place. Who would have thought that it would be taken away by someone else? He had a strong sense of unwillingness, but against a true master, he had no chance of winning. Being able to keep his life was already good enough. As for the other things, they would all be taken away. Lei Xingfeng said, "Why are you crying? You haven't even fought, and you're already admitting defeat?" Zhonggung vigorously nodded. "True master, what's the point of fighting?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Maybe they're not here to take over the territory. Maybe it's something else." Zhonggung said, "Impossible. Maybe AI, it's best if that's the case." He had lost all confidence. Originally, with 2 mill wheel masters, even if the opponent had advanced to a mill wheel master, Zhonggung could still firmly suppress him. However, not only was the opponent a mill wheel master, but he also had a true master. What was the point of fighting? He didn't know that Lei Xingfeng was also a true master, and a true master who was much stronger than the opponent. When the ship was about 10 meters away from the platform, the middle-aged man grabbed Longfin and jumped onto the platform. For ordinary people, this was indeed inconceivable, but for cultivators, it wasn't too shocking. The two stood on the platform with high spirits. Longfin proudly said, "Zhonggung, I'm here." Zhonggung felt helpless and said, "Longfin, what do you want?" Just this one sentence caused the people on his side to lose all their momentum. Of course, Lei Xingfeng wasn't affected at all. He just stood beside Wu Zhen indifferently. In addition, his appearance was extremely young, and he looked like a teenager. Neither Longfin nor the middle-aged man noticed him. Longfin was extremely happy. He had fought with Zhonggung before, and the two of them were on par. However, Zhonggung was slightly stronger than him, so he was always unconvinced. This time, not only did he advance to a mill wheel master, he also brought a true master expert. He could definitely hold his head high. However, this time, he didn't come to take over Huishi town. This was actually guessed by Lei Xingfeng. Longfin came with other plans. Longfin said, "Ha, Zhonggung, don't be so aggressive. Tell me, what else can I do?" Ha ha. He was so proud that he wanted to die. His face was full of smiles. In Zhonggung's eyes, Longfin's smile was full of malice. The true master looked around. Hearing Longfin's proud boasting, he couldn't help but laugh and said, "Longfin, you're asking for a beating again. What are you showing off for?" Longfin was shocked. His face turned red and said, "Senior brother, I'm just happy." Zhonggung's heart suddenly went cold. The relationship between senior and junior brother was now big trouble. Longfin said, Okay, I'll say it. Zhonggung gathered his strength. His heart was trembling as he listened to what the other party had to say. He smiled bitterly to himself. It would be good if he could survive this time. He really didn't have the confidence to fight with a true master. Longfin said, "Zhonggung, it's very simple. Huishi town will still be under your command. It will still be your territory. We won't take it over. However, you have to agree to one condition." Zhonggung was stunned. This result was too sudden. He didn't even think about it. At least his life was no longer in danger. He said, "What condition?" Longfin said, "Submit to Mr. Tam." He pointed at the middle-aged man. Lei Xingfeng immediately understood. This Mr. Tam was here to take over the territory. However, he couldn't be like 1,000 Luan master and Wan Luan Shi, who took over the market. Instead, he took over the surrounding areas. He couldn't help but sigh. The more power you have, the more territory you can take over. Even if Zhonggung didn't want to, he didn't dare to reject. This was much better than being chased away. Not only could he keep his life, he also had a backer behind him. Of course, whether this backer was reliable or not was hard to say. He hesitated for a moment. Just as he was about to agree, Lei Xingfeng interrupted. Lei Xingfeng said, "Submit to Mr. Tam?" He, which sect is Mr. Tam from? He couldn't stand the other party's arrogance and couldn't help but interrupt. Tan didn't think that there would be people who would question him. He stared at Lei Xingfeng, trying to find out why this guy dared to say such things. However, his level was much lower than Lei Xingfeng's, so he couldn't detect the other party's depth. However, Tanda had always been very cautious. This was also why he rarely failed. He said, "I don't have a sect." Chapter 119. Longfin said, "Hey, little guy, are you looking for death? How dare you talk to Mr. Tam like that?" Tamda couldn't see Lei Xingfeng's depth, so he was cautious and didn't provoke him. He wouldn't stop Longfin from provoking him. He just wanted to see what Lei Xingfeng was relying on because he could see that Zhonggung had basically given in. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "I'm looking for death? Why would I want to? Your mouth. Did you eat shit? Why is it so smelly?" This sentence instantly caused Qianyu to jump up, and he took a step forward. Lei Xingfeng looked at him indifferently and said, "Don't bully a kid. There will be retribution." Although his appearance was tall and big like an adult, his face, no matter how you looked at it, was that of a teenager. In this world, 20 years old was considered an adult, and a cultivator was considered an adult at least 28 years old. Longfin couldn't help but want to teach Lei Xingfeng a lesson. Tamda said, "Okay, Longfin, back off." In his eyes, Lei Xingfeng wasn't afraid of Longfin at all. He even had a feeling of eagerness to fight. This made him very uneasy, so he immediately stopped Longfin. Once they started fighting, a lot of things would be hard to say. According to his life experience, conflict should be minimized as much as possible. Once there were any signs of danger, it should be resolved and avoided immediately. He didn't find anything else. The only thing that made him suspicious was that Lei Xingfeng was too calm. This was not normal. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but secretly praise this Shinran. This Shinran was really good at enduring. He was able to control his emotions and maintain a very calm attitude. This was very difficult, and it made him want to recruit him. Talents were hard to come by. This kind of cautious people could live longer, and he admired his calm approach. Tanda smiled and asked, "What's your name, little brother?" He couldn't see through Lei Xingfeng's cultivation, but he knew that Lei Xingfeng was a practitioner. If Lei Xingfeng was slightly older, he would suspect that he was a high-level practitioner. However, Lei Xingfeng's appearance was really misleading. He couldn't believe that Lei Xingfeng's cultivation was higher than his. This was also one of the reasons why he didn't allow Longfin to speak carelessly. Lei Xingfeng smiled. "My surname is Lei." Tanda said, "Since you're also a cultivator, then do you think I'm worth depending on? I am Tanda, a true ring avatar, a true mill wheel avatar." He humbly announced his strength. Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "Not worth relying on." Then he added, "Too weak." Longfin was really going crazy. He roared, "Little bastard, you're courting death." He suddenly pounced forward. He was really too angry. In addition, he never put Lei Xingfeng in his eyes. He thought that even if this little guy was a practitioner, he was just a junior of Zhonggung. Since he dared to speak so rudely, he wanted to teach him a lesson. Even though Longfin pounced forward fiercely, he didn't have any killing intent. Both Tanda and Lei Xingfeng had already noticed this point. This point allowed Longfin to escape with his life. Lei Xingfeng's figure swayed, slightly. He was much faster than Longfin. Longfin had just pounced forward, and his body was in the air when Lei Xingfeng suddenly appeared in front of him. Everyone could clearly see that he had only slapped Longfin's chest. In the next second, Lei Xingfeng had already disappeared. He had returned to his original position. In the eyes of everyone, Lei Xingfeng was like a ghost flickering in and out of existence. Longfin was sent flying by Lei Xingfeng's slap. Tanda grabbed him with his backhand. With the sound of tearing cloth, Longfin fell into the lake with a splash. Tanda was secretly shocked. Just now, he had grabbed Longfin with his backhand. However, he still couldn't catch him. There was only a piece of cloth in his hand. Longfin was still knocked into the water. He couldn't see through Lei Xingfeng anymore. What was this? Lei Xingfeng's movements didn't seem like a mill-wheel avatar at all. They were of a higher level of cultivation. Tanda was very uneasy. Lei Xingfeng giggled and said, "It's good to take a cold shower to clear your head. Otherwise, you won't even know what happened when you die." In just a few seconds, Longfin jumped out of the water. This guy was indeed like a big fish. He directly jumped out of the lake and onto the platform. However, even if he had the guts, he wouldn't dare to reach out to Lei Xingfeng. Moreover, he knew very well that Lei Xingfeng was being lenient. He pointed at Lei Xingfeng and mumbled a few words. No one could understand what he was saying. Zhonggang couldn't help but take a step back. He was also shocked. This was because he knew very well that with his ability, it was impossible for him to send a mill-wheel avatar flying like Lei Xingfeng did. Moreover, he could see that Lei Xingfeng was being lenient. If Lei Xingfeng wanted to kill his opponent at the moment of impact, even if Lei Xingfeng couldn't kill his opponent, he could still heavily injure him. Wu Zhen and Han Xiaobao were even more shocked. The two knew that Lei Xingfeng was very strong, but they didn't expect him to be so strong that a mill-wheel avatar couldn't even fight back. Longfin finally calmed down. He was very unwilling and said, "Longfin, mill-wheel avatar." He used the rule that all practitioners knew. He had no way of knowing Lei Xingfeng's level, so he could only use this stupid method. Lei Xingfeng obviously knew this rule. Under normal circumstances, he would say his name and level. This was also a rule, a form of respect. He wanted to take in subordinates, so he didn't reject this method. He stepped forward and said, "Lei Xingfeng, great true Luanin master." Put on. Two people sat down on the spot. One was Longfin, the other was Zhonggang. The two's legs went soft, and they sat down on the platform. The other one retreated and almost fell into the lake. Tan destabilized himself with great difficulty. His mouth was full of bitterness. He had been very careful, but he didn't think that such a terrifying expert would appear in such a remote place. He didn't doubt Lei Xingfeng's words at all. This thing couldn't be nonsense. Great true Luanin master, 4 true ring bodies. Maybe other low-level practitioners didn't know, but Longfin and Zhonggang were very clear. A true master of this level shouldn't appear here. The two were scared stiff. Tanda was even more shocked. He had no hope of advancing, so he wanted to find a remote place to establish a family and focus on nurturing the next generation. But he actually met a great, true Luanin master at such a young age. He didn't even need to think, even if he used his, but to think he would know that Lei Xingfeng was definitely a disciple of a super large sect. He was one of the top elite disciples and wasn't someone a true master like him could compare to. Tanda sighed inwardly. He reached out his hand and lifted Qianyu up. "Sai Lei, Senior Lei." He didn't know how to address Qianyu. Qianyu looked too young. However, amongst cultivators, the stronger one was the most respected. Qian Yu was much stronger than him. Zhong Gang was helped up by Wu Zhen. He couldn't help but ask, Lei? Aren't you a mill wheel master? You. Lei Xingfeng found it funny. He couldn't say that he left a rainy season and advanced from a mill wheel master to a great true Luanin master. There was no way he could say that. Even if he said it, no one would believe him. He said, Sorry, I didn't mean to hide it. It was just to make it easier for me to gain experience. Zhonggang was extremely helpless. He bitterly laughed. Senior, this joke is too big. Lei Xingfeng said, All right, isn't this good? If I had said I was a great true Luanin master, you wouldn't have been so casual. I don't have any bad intentions. Zhonggang said, Yes, I understand. Thank you, Senior, for your guidance last time. The reason why he advanced was indeed thanks to Lei Xingfeng. At that time, Lei Xingfeng had given him some pointers, allowing him to advance to a mill wheel master. Now, he understood that it was no wonder he was like this. Lei Xingfeng laughed. That's nothing. All right, you. That's right, Tanda, Longfin, hee, since you're here, you can be considered guests. Tanda and Longfin both let out a sigh of relief. From his tone, they knew that Lei Xingfeng didn't see them as enemies. This was a very good sign. No matter how arrogant they were, they wouldn't dare to provoke such an expert. Furthermore, Tanda was an extremely cautious person. Longfin was still trembling. This shock was too great. As a local tyrant, he hadn't come into contact with many true masters, not to mention a great true Luan Yi master with 4 true ring bodies. He was almost scared to death. Just now, he actually dared to pounce on such a terrifying expert. Tanda said, Yes, we were presumptuous. Brother Zhonggang, I apologize to you. However, I also didn't have any bad intentions. After all, Tanda was also a true master. Even if Zhonggang had an opinion, he wouldn't dare to be rude to a true master. He said, Since you're here, then you're a guest. Senior Lei is right. Please, let's go home and talk. He wasn't a foolish person. To be able to use this opportunity to get to know such an expert was good. It could be said that no discord leads to friendship. Moreover, the two sides didn't fight. Tanda didn't plan to fight from the start. This kind of matter of establishing a family was too common for practitioners. With their strength and status, occupying a few small places and consolidating small powers was quite common. Zhonggang didn't have any conflicting feelings about this. If he advanced to true master, he would probably do the same. Returning to Zhonggang's living hall, the host and guest sat down. This time, Lei Xingfeng sat in the main seat. If he didn't sit, no one would dare to sit. Tanda and Longfin gradually calmed down. This was because Lei Xingfeng's performance was very peaceful. He didn't want to fight or kill. The two calmed down. Longfin kept apologizing. Lei Xingfeng said, No need to apologize. Oh, right, Tanda, you really don't have a sect? Tanda laughed bitterly and said, I don't dare to hide it from Senior. Actually, I do have a sect. It's just that I'm too old and can't advance. I wanted to come back to my hometown to raise some disciples and establish a family. Before the rainy season, I came back to my junior apprentice brother. Junior apprentice brother Longfin is my little cousin. This time, I brought a dozen Luan rings with me to let him advance to mill wheel master. I want to occupy a few small markets and get some resources and manpower. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, What sect is it? Tanda said, I wonder if Senior has heard of the Black Horn sect. Lei Xingfeng didn't understand the sects of the Wanxi continent. He shook his head and said, Never heard of it. Zhonggang said in shock, Black Horn sect? That's a pretty good sect. I heard that they have a lot of experts. I seem to have heard that the Black Horn sect recently had a conflict with a sect called the Great Dong Peak. However, I don't know what kind of sect the Great Dong Peak is. Chapter 120. Tanda bitterly laughed and said, I didn't think that even a remote place like this would hear about it. All right, I'll tell you the truth. Actually, I escaped. Our Black Horn Gate has already been disbanded. More than half of our people are dead or injured. AI, we're not as strong as others. Longfin said, Senior brother, this is good too. Since there's no future in the Black Horn Gate, it's good to take this opportunity to leave. In the sect, there are always restrictions. It's not as good as doing whatever you want here. Tanda shook his head and said, You don't understand. It's a pity. If I could find a Luanine ring, I might be able to advance. Without the sect, I wouldn't be able to find such a good thing. Longfin said, Senior brother, Luanine rings are too rare. You've been in the sect for so many years and didn't get many. This time, I even used up a lot of Luan rings. AI, it's really too difficult. His tone was full of gratitude. Zhonggung said, What Luanine ring? He didn't know there was such a thing. Listening to the two's conversation, it seemed that Longfin's advancement was related to these Luan rings. He was very curious. Lei Xingfeng explained a bit. Immediately, Zhonggung's eyes were about to spit fire. This was too heaven-defying, relying on these Luanine rings and Luanine rings to advance. He sighed and said, Heavens, I want them too. Longfin laughed and said, Stop dreaming. My senior brother has been in the Black Horn Gate for almost 100 years. You're asking him how many Luanine rings and Luanine rings he got? Tanda laughed and said, It's not a loss. About 20 Luan rings a year. Oh, right. This is the number I can get after advancing to Sage. At the beginning, I could get 2 or 3 Luan rings a year. It's already quite a lot. Relying on these Luan rings, I advanced to Mill Wheel Master. Later, by chance, I got a Luanine ring and advanced to Sage. My luck is already very good. Only now did Xian Feng know that even in a sect, Luan and Luanine rings were hard to come by. Last time in his family, he had gotten 10 Yin rings, 150 Luanine rings, and 100,000 Luan rings at once. At first, he thought that Yin and Luanine rings were too few, but he never thought about how hard it was to get them, especially Yin rings, which were hard to come by even in large sections. Tanda continued, If I had a large number of Luan rings, I might still be able to advance. Unfortunately, the Black Horn Gate has failed this time, so the entire sect no longer exists. I also can't join another sect, so it will be very difficult to obtain Luan rings in the future. Lei Xingfeng said, Roughly how many Luan rings do you need to advance? Tanda bitterly smiled. When I first used the Luan rings, the effects were extremely good. After leveling up, once the effects started to decrease, but they're still very useful. When I reached Sage Realm, I relied on over 1,000 Luan rings and a Luan Yin ring. If I wanted to level up again, I'd need at least 10 times the amount. That's over 10,000 Luan rings and 10 Luan Yin rings. He shook his head. His expression was a bit depressed. He knew that even if he had that many Luan rings and Luan Yin rings, he might not be able to advance again. 1,000 Luan rings and 1 Luan Yin ring. Other than Lei Xingfeng, everyone else showed a trace of despair. It was impossible to find so many Luan rings. Lei Xingfeng said, With your income, how can you have so many Luan rings? Tanda said, With sect missions, I can still gather them. Sometimes the sect will give some rewards. After so many years, it's more or less enough. Unfortunately, if I had Luan Yin rings, it would be different. At most 12 or 13 Luan Yin rings. I can advance again, but Luan Yin rings are too hard to find. Lei Xingfeng nodded. So it's like that. Hee hee, then Luan Yin rings are very valuable in the sect. Tanda sighed. It's not just valuable. When that thing comes out, all the sages' eyes turn red. Luan rings are still okay, but Luan Yin rings are completely different. In the sect, if you use Luan Yin rings, you can exchange for almost anything. It's a recognized treasure. Zhonggung shook his head. AI, don't talk about Luan Yin rings. I don't even know what Luan rings are. Hearing you say that, I want to join a sect. Maybe I can get some Luan rings and Luan Yin rings. Tanda laughed. Don't be tempted by that. Even in large sects, Luan rings and Luan Yin rings are a privilege that only a few people have. Lower class people have no chance of getting them. Even if you contribute a lot, you'll get very little. It's not enough to level up. Unless you're an inner sect disciple or a direct disciple, then you'll get some from your elders. I'm an inner sect disciple, but I'm not a direct disciple. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a problem leveling up. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a direct disciple. Inner sect disciple. Zhonggung couldn't help but laugh bitterly. He knew that, with his talent, he wouldn't be able to enter the inner sect. At most, he'd be an outer sect disciple. According to Tanda, he'd be an errand boy. Although his position is much higher than normal people, it's almost impossible for him to get Luan rings and Luan Yin rings. Tanda continued. Actually, Luan rings and Luan Yin rings are mostly in the hands of the upper echelons of the sect. Middle and low-level disciples can't get them at all. Even for the upper echelons of the sect, Luan rings and Luan Yin rings are rare items. They don't even have enough for themselves. Lei Xingfeng said, the upper echelons are at least experts with 3 rings. Luan rings shouldn't be of much use to them. Tanda said, of course, that's why we have the chance to get some Luan rings. Otherwise, there would be no hope. Lei Xingfeng said, other than Luan rings and Luan Yin rings should be more effective. Tanda shook his head and said, don't even think about Yin rings. Even the upper echelons can't get them. There's only one of them. If other sects knew about it, it'd be enough to cause a huge war. Zhonggung nodded. Yin rings should only be of great use to the upper echelons of the sect. Indeed, if I were the highest echelon of the sect, I wouldn't care so much about advancing. Lei Xingfeng knew that Yin rings weren't something an enlightened master could condense, but rather a higher-level cultivator. With his knowledge, he'd only met 2 people in this world who were higher than an enlightened master. One was his master, and the other was his ancestor. Only these 2 people could condense Yin rings. Of course, he was sure that there were other cultivators higher than an enlightened master, but he hadn't met them yet. If his level wasn't high enough, the possibility of meeting them was very low. Lei Xingfeng didn't find this strange at all. Just like in his previous life, he was just a normal person. The people he interacted with were mostly the same as him. He definitely wouldn't have come into contact with mayors or high-ranking officials. Similarly, he wouldn't have come into contact with big businessmen or intellectuals. If he was one of them, then he would have come into contact with people of this level. In his previous life, there was a very vivid saying, circles. You were a member of this circle, so you would know more about it. Tanda said, that's right. From what I know, for Yin rings, there are indeed fights between sections. There are even cases of sects being wiped out. Lei Xingfeng smiled. Actually, if you really want to get Luan rings, the Luan Yin rings aren't that hard. Tanda was shocked. Other than the sects, there are other ways to get Luan rings, and Luan Yin rings. Everyone's attention was immediately focused on him. Now everyone understood that with Luan rings, advancing in rank would be very easy. Who wouldn't want them? Lei Xingfeng nodded. It depends on whether you want them or not. Tanda suddenly understood. He said in surprise, you have them? Zhonggung also reacted. This guy directly jumped in front of Lei Xingfeng and said, "You have Luan rings? Ayaya, are you for real?" Lei Xingfeng didn't say anything. He took out a row of Luan rings and a few Luan Yin rings. As for Yin rings, he didn't dare take them out. Those things were too scary and could easily cause conflict. He said, "That's right, I have both Luan rings and Luan Yin rings." Tanda grabbed a Yin ring and a Luan Yin ring and carefully inspected them. After a while, he sighed. "Sigh, these are real Luan rings and Luan Yin rings. The ones I had before were actually so impure." The practitioners in the room all came forward. Everyone took out the Luan rings and Luan Yin rings and looked at them. Most of the people here had never seen Luan rings and Luan Yin rings before. They were all shocked. Zhonggung said, "No wonder your cultivation increased so quickly. With so many Luan rings and Luan Yin rings, your cultivation speed must be very fast." Lei Xingfeng smiled slightly, but didn't reply. Tanda's knowledge wasn't bad. He said, "Zhonggung, you're wrong. If I'm not wrong, Senior Lei has never used Luan rings and Luan Yin rings." Wu Jin asked curiously, "Why is that?" If he didn't use them, then Senior Lei's cultivation speed would be too fast. Tanda said, "You don't understand. With Senior Lei's talent and potential, using Luan Yin rings wouldn't be worth it. You have to know, for someone with top talent to use this kind of auxiliary method to cultivate, it's definitely not rational. You don't know, but for someone who uses Luan rings and Luan Yin rings to advance, once they reach a certain level, it'll be useless. At that time, they'll be like me, find a place and wait for death." Wu Jin said, "If Senior uses auxiliary methods, wouldn't his cultivation speed be faster? And if his talent is good, even if he can't use Luan rings and Luan Yin rings with his talent, he can still continue to cultivate." Tanda said, "You're ignorant. You have to know Luan rings and Luan Yin rings are formed by super experts. They have some kind of power. If you use them too much, it'll wash away the most precious part of your potential. At that time, no matter how good your potential is, it'll be hard for you to improve. AI, even if I tell you, you won't understand. Senior Lei definitely knows this." Lei Xingfeng nodded. "That's right. I've never used a Luan ring before. Also, the sect elders don't allow me to use it." Wu Zhen said, "Since there's such a big side effect, then why do we still use it?" Zhonggung couldn't listen anymore. He raised his hand and slapped the back of his head. He scolded, "Idiot, you're really stupid." Wu Zhen shrunk his neck and said in a wronged manner, "Master, how am I stupid?" Zhonggung bitterly smiled and shook his head. He was speechless towards this disciple of his. It was Tanda who explained, "Your talent is very good." Wu Zhen shook his head. "My talent is very average." Chapter 121. Tanda said, "With your talent and potential, what level can you reach? Can you reach Enlightened Master?" Wu Zhen said, "How can I reach Enlightened Master? I'll be satisfied if I can reach Mill-Wheel Master." Tanda laughed. "Then with Luan rings, you can easily reach Mill-Wheel Master. With Luan Yin rings, you can easily reach Enlightened Master. If you have more Luan Yin rings, reaching Enlightened Master isn't impossible. Then will you still refuse to use Luan Yin rings and Luan Yin rings?" Wu Zhen slapped his head and said, "I'm an idiot." Everyone laughed. Zhonggung shook his head and smiled bitterly. This disciple usually looked smart, but now he was acting like an idiot. After all, he was his disciple. He didn't want to scold him in front of others. So he said, "Okay, even if you can use Luan and Luan Yin rings to quickly advance, where are you going to find these treasures?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's not impossible to get Luan and Luan Yin rings. I need some people to do things outside. They can be considered as my subordinates. Are you guys interested?" Tanda was surprised. Senior Lei, you want to gather subordinates? Lei Xingfeng nodded. Yes, I came out to gain experience. I also want to gather subordinates. Tanda said, Can I join? He didn't hesitate to apply. He knew very well that there was a huge difference between having a backer and working hard on his own. Furthermore, he also hoped that he could go one step further. First true ring body and second true ring body were definitely different. With his own strength, he knew very well that it would be very difficult for him to achieve that in this lifetime. Lei Xingfeng said, Welcome, of course you can join. Zhong Geng wasn't stupid. He hurriedly said, Can I join too? He looked at Lei Xingfeng with a face full of desire. Lei Xingfeng smiled. Of course, why not? Welcome. The others also requested to join. Xian Feng didn't reject them, but he did say that the ones in charge would be Tanda and Zhong Geng. The two of them would manage their own subordinates. This was a very loose structure. He didn't want to create a strict organization. He only wanted to have someone to use in this world. This was like hiring people. He hired these people to do things for him. Lei Xingfeng said, I don't have many things to do. You guys help me gather some information. Also, expand the territory. This place can be considered my base. I will send people to help you guys. Every year, Lei Xingfeng suddenly felt a bit troubled. He didn't know how many Luanine rings he needed to make these people follow him. He originally wanted to say 500 Luan rings. But he continued, How many Luan rings every year? Zhong Geng looked at Tanda. He didn't have any experience at all. Tanda thought for a while, then said, Every year, I want 40 Luan rings. Zhong Geng, how many do you want? He directly doubled his income from the Black Horn Gate. Zhong Geng hesitated. After all, Tanda was an enlightened master. He himself was a mill-wheel master. The only advantage he had was that he was more familiar with Lei Xingfeng. He said, I want 30 Luan rings. 30 Luan rings every year. Tanda said, I'm a mill-wheel master in the Black Horn Gate. Every year, I only get a few Luan rings. Most of them are gold rings. Zhong Geng laughed bitterly. He didn't say anything. The others didn't say anything. It wasn't their turn to speak. Lei Xingfeng laughed. Since you're my subordinates, then I won't be stingy. The first year, 200 Luan rings. The second year, if I'm satisfied, then the second year, 300 Luan rings. For every enlightened master, I'll add 50 Luan rings. Of course, this also depends on how many true ring bodies they have. The higher the level, the more Luan rings. Also, if I give out missions once completed, there will be rewards. I'll even reward you with Luanine rings. How about this? Tanda was overjoyed. He was sure that in less than 10 years, he would definitely be able to save up enough Luan and Luanine rings to break through to the second true ring body. He said, No problem, that's great. Zhong Geng also said happily, I'll join, no problem, Lei Xingfeng said, Then Tanda will be the main, and Zhong Geng will be the support. No objections, right? Tanda said, No objections, I agree. He was very satisfied. Zhong Geng nodded. Okay, I'll seriously support Mr. Tam. I agree. His face was full of joy. Lei Xingfeng said, Also, Zhong Geng, you have to take care of Uncle Zhou Xian and little brother Zhou Tong. They saved my life. Zhong Geng was shocked. He knew that Lei Xingfeng had been living on Zhou Tong's ship. He didn't expect these two normal people to be Lei Xingfeng's life saviors. He said, Seriously, don't worry, leave it to me. I'll take care of them. And I'll arrange, Lei Xingfeng said, arrange a more leisurely job for them. And the pay is slightly higher. You don't have to take care of them. That's not good. Zhong Geng agreed and said, Don't worry, leave it to me. I won't let you down. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, If it's done well, there will be a reward. This is also a mission. Tanda asked curiously, "Are these two cultivators?" Lei Xingfeng said, "No, they're normal people. When I first came here, I fainted beside the reed marsh and was saved by these two." Tanda said, "Understood. We'll take it seriously." He began to snatch the mission without hesitation. Zhonggung smiled bitterly to himself. This guy was not easy to deal with, but he couldn't say much. After all, they were already in the same group. He couldn't compare to Tanda in this aspect. He had always been a rich person and didn't know the rules of the sect. In the sect, not only did you have to flatter the top, but you also had to bully the bottom. Many missions had to be snatched, or you wouldn't get resources. It wasn't that Tanda was bullying him, but that this guy was already used to this method and began to snatch unconsciously. Lei Xingfeng didn't care, as long as Zhou Tong and Zhou Xian took advantage of it. At this time, Wu Zhen became smart and said, "I know Zhou Tong." "He, Master, leave this matter to me." Zhonggung nodded and said, "Okay, I'll leave it to you. If you can't do it well, pack up and leave." Wu Zhen was shocked and hurriedly said, "Master, don't worry, I'll do it well even if I have to risk my life." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "It's not that serious." "Okay, leave this to Wu Zhen." "Oh, right. I promised to give a boat to Zhou Xian. We'll do it together." Wu Zhen respectfully agreed. A boat was nothing. Even a large sailboat wouldn't be a problem. Lei Xingfeng said, "Also, I have a mission. If you can complete it, you'll be rewarded with 5 Luanine rings. No, 10 Luanine rings." Tan immediately went crazy. What a joke. 1 Luanine ring was worth 10,000 Luanine rings. Of course, even if you had Luanine rings, you wouldn't be able to exchange for that many Luanine rings. Although Luanine rings were the lowest among the 3 types of rings, they were also the most useful. It was mainly used by middle and low-level disciples. Of course, Luanine rings were extremely rare. Once a large sect received one, it would be kept by the upper echelons. "What mission? I'll take it." Tanda's eyes lit up as he stared at Lei Xingfeng. The fanaticism in his eyes shocked everyone. Zhonggung said, "Mr. Tam, this mission should be shared by all of us." He wasn't stupid, so of course he would fight for it. Lei Xingfeng said, "There's no need to fight. This mission is hard to complete with just a few people. I need to gather information. Whoever brings me accurate information will be heavily rewarded." Tanda said, "What information?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I need to gather information about a person's whereabouts." Tanda's face immediately lit up. In terms of knowledge, Zhonggung and the rest of the country tycoons simply couldn't compare with him. After all, he was a person who had been in the sect for a long time, so he had the most information. In addition, he also liked to inquire about all kinds of information. He always believed that more information meant more gains. He said, "Who is it? Do you have a name and sect?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I have a name, but I don't know what sect it is. I only know that she's in a large sect." Tanda said, "Oh, a large sect? That's a bit difficult. The people in large sects, at least a few million, at most tens of millions." He suddenly felt that it was very troublesome. This Luanine ring wasn't easy to obtain. Lei Xingfeng said, "I'm looking for a woman." The way Tanda and Zhonggung looked at him was not right. There was a hint of wretchedness in their eyes. Lei Xingfeng immediately reacted and scolded, "Damn, what are you thinking? She's an elder of mine called Aslan. She has 4 true ring bodies and is a great true Luanine master. But I don't know which large sect she's in. I forgot to ask, so I can't find her." Tanda was shocked. A senior with 4 true ring bodies. But Lei Xingfeng also had 4 true ring bodies. He said, if that's the case, I'll have to go out and ask around. If she's famous, then maybe we can find her. If she's not famous, then it'll be hard. Lei Xingfeng said, she should be very famous. She's a LV Luan expert. LV Luan. This attribute was also quite rare. Especially for cultivators of this attribute, they had 2 major specialties, the ability to concoct medicine and the ability to heal. Every high-level sage would be very respectful towards sage-level experts of this attribute. They definitely wouldn't want to offend such an expert. Usually, these people would be very famous among sage-level experts. Tanda let out a breath of relief and became excited. What a joke. A LV Luan, a great true Luanine master with 4 true ring bodies and a woman. This kind of person must be very famous. He suddenly saw a glimmer of hope and said, I'll look for her. I have some friends outside. Zhonggung was completely deflated. He was a country bumpkin. If you wanted to ask about the situation around him, such as taking care of Zhou Tong, he wouldn't have any problems. But if you wanted to ask him about the situation outside, you would be asking the blind. He didn't know at all. Wu Zhen muttered, large sects? I can't even enter small sects. Lei Xingfeng asked, how many large sects are there in 1C continent? Tanda had a difficult expression and sighed, I don't know. 1C continent is too big. I can't use Luan points and can't use the ancient Luan channel to go outside. So the information is limited. The main thing is that I haven't paid much attention to this. Chapter 122. Lei Xingfeng nodded. He understood. Tanda came to such a remote place. He obviously wouldn't collect information on the large sections. He said, is there anyone who is well informed? Tanda thought for a moment and said, there is a guy who likes to wander around. He should know a lot of information. We can ask him. He then added, he is also a great Luanine true master with 4 true ring bodies. He can use the ancient Luan channel. I don't know if he is at home. Lei Xingfeng said, where does he live? How far is it from here? Mr. Tam said, it will take 3 months to get there. It's very far. It will take at least 2 months by boat, then another month on foot. If he isn't at home, then we will have wasted our trip. Lei Xingfeng said, is there a Luan spot? If there is a Luan spot, we can use the ancient Luan channel. Tanda said, yes, there is a Luan spot. It is about 3 days from here. That person's home is closer to the Luan spot. So if we use the ancient Luan channel, it will be faster. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, how about this? Zhonggung will stay here, Tanda will lead the way, and Wu Zhen will go together. Long Fin will stay with Zhonggung. You two will be in charge of things here. Zhonggung will be in charge. If we go, about 10 days we should be back. There were too few people. Lei Xingfeng could only use this method to bring the 2 sects together. Wu Zhen's face was full of joy. To be able to go with a true master, at least he would be able to broaden his horizons. He might even get some benefits. This made him very happy. Zhonggung wasn't too disappointed. He believed that if Lei Xingfeng found the person, he would get a share of the Luanine rings. No matter what, he was the second leader. With Tanda's intelligence, he definitely wouldn't take it all for himself. He couldn't eat it too badly. That would be disadvantageous to Tanda. Lei Xingfeng said, okay, let's go find your friend. Entering the ancient Luan channel through the Luan spot, Lei Xingfeng, Tanda, and Wu Zhen came to a piece of land. This was the first time Lei Xingfeng saw land in 1C continent. Even though it was land, there was a dense network of rivers, some sparse forests. Along the river, there were many simple houses built with mud bricks, the roofs covered with reeds. Every house had boats. Compared to the lake, the population on the land was much denser. Along the way, Lei Xingfeng found that the normal people here lived a very hard life. Whether it was their clothing or living conditions, they were all very poor, but their complexions were not bad. It was obvious that by the river and the lake, they didn't lack food, adding on to the warm and humid climate of Wansi continent. The people here didn't care much about what they wore. The men were mostly naked and liked to tattoo all kinds of patterns on their bodies. On the road, as long as they saw people dressed in silk, they were almost all low-level cultivators. Moreover, they were all accompanied by a large group of people looking mighty and domineering. In this world, cultivators were like natural aristocrats. They had martial strength that ordinary people feared. In small places, they could become tycoons and rulers. Tanda said, "I've been here a few times." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "What are you doing here?" Tanda said, "When a sect is recruiting, testing and recruiting disciples, they will go to many places. Hee. Every time it's a big festival. For normal people, it's a chance to change their fate." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Indeed, as long as you become a practitioner, even if you are 100 Luan master or 1,000 Luan master, once you come back, you will be a tyrant." Tanda said, "There are many people here. There are many practitioners. It's much worse in the lake. There is very little land in Wansi continent. Many people are willing to live on the land, not willing to enter the lake. It's the same for practitioners." Lei Xingfeng said, "So you chose to enter the lake to occupy a few markets?" Tanda smiled bitterly and said, "Yes, who knew I would bump into you?" Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "The result is not bad, right?" Tanda suddenly laughed and said, "Of course, I was lucky. If I met an unreasonable master, I might have died there." Wu Jin said, "That can't be. Cultivators aren't lunatics." Tanda said, "Crazy? No need to be crazy. A true master-level practitioner doesn't need to be crazy. As long as you give him a reason, killing you is like killing a chicken. He won't even care. What can you do?" Wu Jun was speechless, thinking about it. If it was a true master-level expert, even if he killed him, Wu Jun, what could he do? If he died, who would help him take revenge? Not even his master. Lei Xingfeng said, "Either you are strong or you have a strong person behind you, making the opponent not dare to kill. Otherwise, there is really no way." He finally understood why he was so careful when he met Tanda. It was because of this that he was able to avoid a massacre. If he was unrestrained and killed, then Lei Xingfeng would definitely not stand by and watch. With his strength, meeting Lei Xingfeng would be a death situation. Wu Jin said, "Then wouldn't us low-level practitioners be too pitiful?" Tanda sneered, "Forget it. Pitiful my ass. Look at the normal people. They are the pitiful ones. At least you have strong martial strength. If you meet a master like Senior Lei, there is still room for improvement. Don't be so infatuated. Being able to cultivate is already a blessing. If normal people meet you, their life and death is in your hands. Don't be dissatisfied." Wu Jin said, "I have never killed normal people." Lei Xingfeng said, "That's because you don't want to. If it was a bastard practitioner, if he killed randomly, normal people would have no way to stop him other than running away." Wu Jun said, "Sigh, I still feel that it is better at home. At least my master can protect the safety of my hometown." Lei Xingfeng laughed. "Don't think too much. Just be yourself." Wu Jin nodded and said, "Senior Lei, is there still a possibility for me to improve?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Yes, if you persevere, you should be able to become a mill-wheel master. There shouldn't be a problem." Tanda poured a bucket of cold water and said, "Mill-wheel master is the peak. Without outside help, you will only be a mill-wheel master for the rest of your life. Your talent is too weak. If you use Luan rings, you might be able to barely reach true human rank, but you don't have Luan rings." Wu Jin rolled his eyes and said, "I will work hard to complete Senior Lei's mission. I will gather enough Luan rings." Tanda shook his head. "Obviously, Senior Lei won't stay here for long. And how many missions do you think Senior Lei will give us?" Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. This guy was definitely a smart person. He guessed pretty much correctly. He said, "Actually, it's not that serious. After a while, I might bring you guys out of Wansi continent to another place. It's up to you guys if you are willing." Tanda said without hesitation, "Of course I am willing." Wu Zhen said, "Me too." If he didn't hug this kind of thick leg, he would be an idiot. He wasn't an idiot. Xian Feng was secretly pleased. Although he didn't intend to form a large force, he needed manpower to gather information and materials. Relying on himself, it was impossible to complete such a task. Only by gathering a group of people would they be able to help him. This was something he had realized after becoming a disciple. 2 days later, the three came to a hill. This was a hill surrounded by rivers. It was very rare in this land. Across the wide river, Lei Xingfeng could clearly see the houses on the hill. Lei Xingfeng asked, "Is this where that person lives?" Tanda said, "Yes, this is where he lives." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "He also has a sect? What's his name?" Tanda said, "He used to have a sect, but like me, his sect was destroyed by his enemies. He fled here, and because the terrain here is quite unique, he lived here and cultivated in seclusion. Gradually, he suppressed all the small forces in the surroundings and formed this sphere of influence. His name is Lu Gao, and he's a very shrewd fellow." Lei Xingfeng said, "Last time you said he was a great true Luanine master with 4 true ring bodies?" Tanda nodded, "Yes, a great true Luanine master." Wu Zhen asked curiously, "Mr. Tam, are you familiar with him?" Tanda's face was slightly red as he said, "Not really. I came here for a sect mission. When I was recruiting disciples, I met him twice. That was more than 10 years ago. I don't know if he still knows me." Wu Zhen said, "You aren't familiar." Tanda kicked him. "It doesn't matter if I'm familiar or not, as long as we can find him and understand the situation." Wu Zhen took a kick in the butt. Only then did he remember that this guy was a true Luanine master. He was getting bolder and bolder. Yes, as long as it's useful." Lei Xingfeng said, "How do we get there?" Tanda said, "Go around here. There's a ferry in front." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, let's go." Because they were surrounded by rivers, if they wanted to get to Lu Gao's house, they had to use a ferry, unless they had 6 true ring bodies and could fly directly to the hills. Lei Xingfeng and the other 2 quickly found the ferry. It was a small town. The buildings here were more decent, all made of wood. Of course, in Lei Xingfeng's eyes, this kind of house was too simple. This town was built along the river, and every family had a boat. There was a stone platform by the river with many boats docked. Tanda said, "It's here. There's a house on the side. Lu Gao's disciple is waiting. We need to pay him a visit first, then we can cross the river." The 3 stood at the edge of the market. Wu Zhen said, "Who is that?" He's wearing a mask." Lei Xingfeng turned his head and saw a dozen people quickly walking towards the room where Lu Gao's disciple was. The strangest thing was that each of them was wearing a mask. Tanda's face also showed a surprised expression. Lei Xingfeng said, "Lu Gao's disciple?" Wu Zhen smiled. "Why would a disciple wear a mask?" Tanda said, "No, it's my first time seeing it. Lu Gao's disciple didn't wear a mask before. Strange." Chapter 123. Seeing more than a dozen people enter the house, the 3 of them didn't care. There were too many people in this world who dressed strangely, so no one would talk about them. Lei Xingfeng laughed. "It seems that Lu Gao has a lot of visitors. Let's go." Before he finished speaking, they heard a scream, followed by a loud bang. The whole wooden house suddenly exploded like a bomb. The whole house burst open, wooden planks flew everywhere, and angry shouts sounded. Lei Xingfeng and the other 2's faces suddenly changed, and they immediately retreated. At this time, 70 to 80 people wearing masks suddenly appeared, each of them holding a weapon. They killed their way into the town from the outside, and some of them even held torches and set the houses on fire. Suddenly, the whole town was filled with cries and screams, and the ordinary people ran everywhere. In less than a few minutes, the air was filled with a strong smell of blood. Lei Xingfeng and the other two were all stunned. Tanda reacted quickly, and he shouted, "They must be looking for revenge." Wu Jun said in horror, "Oui, what should we do?" Lei Xingfeng's face became a little ugly. He couldn't stand this kind of unscrupulous killing, especially the killing of ordinary people, because he could see that these killers were all low-level practitioners. They were almost unscrupulous in their killing, regardless of gender, age, or age. Everyone was a target of their slaughter. Tanda said, "I'm afraid we'll be implicated too." Two people wearing masks rushed over with spears in their hands. There was no doubt that their target was Lei Xingfeng and the other two. They were standing on the street, so it was not strange that they attracted people to kill them. Lei Xingfeng had come to this world, and it wasn't that he hadn't experienced killing, but he had never seen ordinary people being killed. He saw a woman holding a child rushing out of a burning house, and was pierced by a spear from the side. 2 lives were lost. He didn't know why, but a strong anger suddenly surged in his heart, and it instantly made his eyes red. Tanda said, "It's okay. As long as we reveal our identities, I believe they won't dare to do anything to us." A black bow suddenly appeared in Lei Xingfeng's hand, and he said, "Identity's my ass. Kill them. Kill these bastards." At this moment, he didn't care about right or wrong. The massacre of this group of people had directly stimulated his violent side. Bang! Bang! TSK. The sound of metal clashing rang out like a storm. The black bow was basically useless to Lei Xingfeng. With Lei Xingfeng's attack power, the black bow couldn't compare at all. However, the black bow had a special point, which was that it could be used for long-range attacks. Moreover, it didn't use up Lei Xingfeng's Luan Yinli. It was enough to deal with low-level practitioners. In just a few seconds, 9 steel arrows flew out. Lei Xingfeng only cared about shooting the cultivators in the distance. As for the 2 cultivators who were rushing over, he simply ignored them. Tanda sighed. He had no choice but to make a move. His figure flashed slightly, and he was already in front of Lei Xingfeng. He shouted, "You're courting death." Wu Jun very tacitly took out a steel pitchfork and guarded Lei Xingfeng's back. A guy wearing a mask had already rushed up from behind, and the two immediately started fighting. With Tan Da's skills dealing with 200 Luan masters, he did not even need to expend any effort. With 2 slaps, he killed the 2 of them. Turning around, he rushed to Wu Jun's side and punched him. A golden light flashed, and the 1,000 Luan master's head and mask exploded. Wiping off the blood on his hand, he said, "Damn, where did these guys come from?" Lei Xingfeng quickly killed those cultivators, 1 arrow per person. No matter if it was 100 Luan master or 1,000 Luan master, they simply couldn't block it. As he walked towards the pier, he continued to shoot. Any cultivator that appeared in Lei Xingfeng's vision couldn't dodge. Even if they activated their defenses, it was still useless. With the strength of a great Luanine true master with 4 true ring bodies, killing these people was as easy as killing normal people. They simply couldn't block it. A group of normal people ran out from the corner of the street, crying and shouting as they tried to escape from the pursuit behind them. 7 to 8 masked cultivators, all of them letting out strange laughter as they slowly followed behind. Normal people constantly fell down and were then stabbed to death by their spears or chopped to death by their blades. Lei Xingfeng stared at the corner of the street. When the group of cultivators appeared, he immediately shot out his steel arrows. In an instant, 3 of them fell down, scaring the cultivators and causing them to quickly retreat, all of them letting out warning cries. There were no longer any masked cultivators on the street. On the ground, there were at least 20 masked cultivators. The 3 of them stood on the pier. Many of the normal people who were lucky enough to survive all ran to the pier. They didn't dare to approach the three of them. Their faces pale as they ran to the boats, untied the ropes, and rowed the boats to the middle of the river. Lei Xingfeng glanced at the pier. There were still dozens of boats that no one had boarded. With one look, he knew that the owners of these boats were most likely dead. At this time, on the hill on the other side of the river, a huge fire suddenly ignited, followed by waves of battle cries. Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "We came at the wrong time." Tanda laughed bitterly and said, "Yeah, I didn't think that Lu Gao's enemies would come knocking. I don't know if Lu Gao is at home. If he isn't, then we're really unlucky." The three of them were already involved. With his character, it was best to avoid conflict if possible. Even if he was wronged, he didn't want to fight with an inexplicable enemy. However, Lei Xingfeng didn't care at all. He came up and killed ruthlessly, so he could only go crazy with him. Wu Xin had always lived in the countryside. At most, he participated in fishing and hunting. Although he wasn't afraid of this level of battle, he was still not used to seeing such a massacre, especially the killing of normal people. It made him even more frightened. It was too tragic. Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't know what kind of enemy they are. They are two damn bastards. I don't object to killing between cultivators. What's the big deal about killing normal people? They even dare to reach out their claws to me. They are courting death." He was full of anger and discomfort. He said, "I believe that they will send masters." Tanda said, "Why don't I explain? We are just passing cultivators. They won't dare to go too far." Lei Xingfeng sneered and said, "Explain my ass. If one comes, I will kill one. If two comes, I will kill a pair." Tanda suddenly didn't dare to say anything. This young man's background was mysterious and his cultivation was profound. In the depths of his heart, he was extremely afraid of Lei Xingfeng. He said, "Okay, then let's kill them together." He had to make a statement. Lei Xingfeng nodded. He knew that people like Tanda were the kind of timid and cautious cultivators. Therefore, people like him could live for a long time. If Tanda was a little more savage, he wouldn't have become his subordinate. He would have most likely become a ghost under Lei Xingfeng's hands. But since he followed Lei Xingfeng, it was no longer up to him. As long as Lei Xingfeng fought, he had to fight with him. Tanda saw this clearly, so he quickly made his statement. Wu Zhen didn't have a choice. If Lei Xingfeng wanted to fight, how could he just stand by and watch? Even if he lost his life, he had to fight. There was no doubt about this. This was the price of following Lei Xingfeng. If you wanted something, you had to pay the price. Lei Xingfeng shot an arrow from time to time, killing the cultivators that appeared. At this time, there were no more ordinary people running around. Other than the ordinary people who escaped to the boats, almost everyone in the town was killed. Even the disciples of Lu Gao, who were guarding the dock, were all dead. A black shadow appeared on the river upstream. Tanda smiled bitterly and said, "I don't know who Lu Gao offended. They actually killed so many people on such a large scale. Senior Lei, look, there were at least 4 to 5 large sailboats coming down from upstream. The river here was very wide, at least 400 to 500 meters wide. The river was turbulent, so large sailboats could sail. Seeing the large boats coming down, the small boats in the river had no way to escape. They could only go back to the dock. It was really shocking." Lei Xingfeng said, "We must kill all the cultivators in the town." Tanda immediately understood Lei Xingfeng's meaning. If they killed all the cultivators here, they could still pretend to be cultivators passing by. Otherwise, it would be a situation where they would not rest until they were dead. Tanda shook his head and said, "It's useless. Those people are still here." He pointed at the small boats that were approaching. Lei Xingfeng couldn't kill ordinary people. These people had seen Lei Xingfeng kill people with their own eyes. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Ha! At this point, there is nothing to regret. Follow me and kill." He was secretly regretting. He didn't regret killing these masked cultivators, but regretted not bringing a guard. If he had brought a guard, then he wouldn't have to worry about anything. Even if he didn't bring any guards, Xian Feng still believed in his own strength. Since the enemy came to exterminate his sect, they must have calculated Gao's strength, which was a great true Luan Yin master. As long as they could defeat Gao, it would be enough. Furthermore, from the masks they wore, this group of people didn't have the strength to guarantee victory, which was why they were so secretive. After some analysis, Xian Feng calmed down. Anyways, against these people who willfully killed the innocent, the only decision he had was to kill them. The large sailboat would take at least 20 minutes to reach here, so Lei Xingfeng didn't stand on the dock and said, "Tanda, you and Wu Zhen stay here. If anyone comes, just kill them." Tanda and Wu Zhen nodded. At this point, they had no choice. If they didn't kill others, but others wanted to kill them, in order to save their lives, the two would fight with their lives on the line. Lei Xingfeng put away his black bow and flipped his wrist. A steel spear appeared in his hand. Because of his experience in Tiger Cliff Castle, he had been training with steel spears and bows since he was young. So even if he was a true master and had all kinds of skills, he still liked to fight with a steel spear. With a spear in hand, he felt a strong sense of security. He said, "I'm going." The town was actually just a street. Other than a crossroad near the pier, the other places were basically clear at a glance. The entire town was on fire, so it was impossible for anyone to hide in the houses. Thus, these masked people could only hide in one place, and that was the entrance of the town. So Lei Xingfeng took the steel spear and rushed towards the entrance of the town. Almost all of the masked men were gathered at the entrance of the town. There were more than 80 of them. They were still in shock and had no choice but to gather together. Their mission was to kill everyone in the town and prevent the people on the island from coming out. However, they did not expect to meet a perverted guy who killed more than 20 people with just a bow and arrow. This group of low-level practitioners was scared out of their wits. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.